Hello friends. Did you know that nearly 80% of those who watch my videos aren't subscribed? If you enjoy the content, I'd truly appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button. It helps a lot. Also, don't forget to leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments. Your interaction not only supports the channel's growth, but also helps these stories reach more people. Thank you all for being here. By the way, where are you watching from? Let me know in the comments. It's 4 in the morning and I can't sleep again. Been staring at the ceiling for 3 hours now, thinking about what happened at the old Riverside Medical Center. My partner keeps telling me to let it go, that some calls just stick with you longer than others. But this one's different. I've been a cop for 15 years. Started on patrol, worked my way up to detective, then back to patrol by choice. I like the streets. Like the unpredictability. Thought I'd seen everything this job could throw at me. Domestics, gang shootings, overdoses, suicides. Hell, I once spent 6 hours talking a guy off a bridge while his ex-wife screamed at him from below. But none of that prepared me for what we found in that hospital. Riverside Medical closed down in 2018. Budget cuts, they said. Too many uninsured patients. Not enough state funding. The place had been falling apart for years anyway. Cracked walls, leaky pipes, electrical problems that should have shut them down decades earlier. When they finally pulled the plug, it was almost a relief. The building's been sitting empty ever since. Chain link fence around the perimeter, no trespassing signs every 20 feet. Security company that's supposed to check on it twice a week. Fat lot of good that does. Kids break in constantly. Homeless folks looking for shelter. Junkies wanting a place to shoot up where nobody'll bother them. Usually, we chase them out, write up a report, and that's the end of it. Simple trespassing. But this call was different from the start. Dispatch got it around 11:30 on a Tuesday night. Anonymous tip about suspicious activity at the hospital. Not kids with flashlights. The caller specifically mentioned vehicles, multiple people, and what sounded like construction equipment running. Construction equipment. At an abandoned hospital at midnight. My partner Rodriguez and I were closest, so we caught the call. Rodriguez has been doing this almost as long as me, and he's got good instincts. When we pulled up to the fence line, he was already shaking his head. "This doesn't feel right," he said. He was right. The place was too quiet. Usually, when we roll up on trespassers, you can hear them. Voices, footsteps, bottles breaking. Something. But Riverside was dead silent. No lights in the windows, no movement, no sound except our radio crackling and the wind pushing trash around the parking lot. But there were tire tracks in the dirt leading up to the fence. Fresh tracks. Big trucks from the look of them. And a section of the chain link had been cut open and carefully closed again. Professional job. Not some kids with bolt cutters. We called for backup before we went in. Standard procedure when you don't know what you're walking into. But backup was 20 minutes out, and Rodriguez was already following the tire tracks toward the building. "Could be drug manufacturing," he said. "Meth lab, maybe, would explain the equipment." Made sense. Abandoned buildings are perfect for that kind of operation. Isolated, already wired for electricity, plenty of space for equipment. We'd busted 3 labs that year alone. The tracks led around to the loading dock at the back of the hospital. The big rolling door was closed, but there was a regular door beside it that was standing open. Just open. Like someone had walked through it and forgotten to close it behind them. Rodriguez drew his weapon. I did the same. We'd been partners for 3 years, and we moved together without needing to talk about it. He went high, I went low. Standard entry. The loading dock was empty except for some old hospital equipment covered in tarps. Wheelchairs, gurneys, IV poles, all the stuff they'd left behind when they closed. But everything was pushed to one side, like someone had cleared a path through the middle. The smell hit us as soon as we stepped inside. Not the usual smell of an abandoned building, that musty, moldy, dead air smell. This was different, chemical, sharp, like bleach mixed with something else I couldn't identify. Rodriguez caught it too. He made a face and covered his nose with his free hand. "Definitely a lab," he whispered. We followed the cleared path deeper into the building. The hallways were long and dark, our flashlight beams cutting through the darkness ahead of us. Emergency lighting strips hung from the ceiling, but they'd been dark for years. Our footsteps echoed weird in the empty corridors, like the sound was bouncing off walls that weren't there. Rodriguez was checking room numbers as we went. Most of the doors were locked, but a few stood open, revealing empty spaces where medical equipment used to be. Patient rooms stripped down to bare walls and floors. Some still had hospital beds, but they were rusted and covered in dust. We were about 10 minutes into the building when we heard it. A low, humming sound, barely audible, like machinery running somewhere far away. Rodriguez stopped and held up his hand. We listened for a full minute, trying to pinpoint where the sound was coming from. It seemed to be coming from below us. "Basement," I whispered. He nodded and pointed toward a stairwell at the end of the corridor. The door was marked "Authorized Personnel Only" and had a keycard reader beside it. But the door was propped open with a brick, just like the loading dock. That's when I started getting a bad feeling about this whole thing. Too many doors standing open, too many convenient paths cleared for us to follow, like someone wanted us to go deeper into the building. But we were cops and we had a job to do. If someone was running a drug lab in the basement of an abandoned hospital, we needed to shut it down. The stairwell was concrete and steel, built to last. Our footsteps rang out like gunshots as we descended. The chemical smell got stronger with each step, and the humming sound got louder. Definitely machinery. Generators, maybe, or ventilation equipment. At the bottom of the stairs was another door, this one unmarked. It was slightly ajar, and there was light coming from the other side. Not electric light. Something yellower, warmer, like lanterns or work lights. Rodriguez and I exchanged looks. This was it. Whatever was going on in this place, it was behind that door. He counted down on his fingers. 3, 2, 1, and we went through. What we found on the other side of that door wasn't a drug lab. It was an operating room. A fully functional, sterile, brightly lit operating room in the basement of an abandoned hospital. The lights were on, the equipment was running, and everything was clean. Not just clean, spotless. Like someone had been maintaining it, keeping it operational for the 4 years since the hospital had officially closed. There was an operating table in the center of the room with fresh sheets on it. Surgical instruments laid out on steel trays. Heart monitors, anesthesia machines, IV poles with bags of clear fluid hanging from them. Everything you'd expect to see in a working hospital, except we were supposed to be in an abandoned building. Rodriguez lowered his weapon, but he didn't holster it. Neither did I. This wasn't making any sense. "What the hell?" he whispered. I was wondering the same thing. The room was empty of people, but it looked like someone had just stepped out for a minute. The equipment was humming softly, the monitors were displaying readouts, and there was a faint antiseptic smell that reminded me of every hospital I'd ever been in. But it was the details that really got to me. Fresh flowers in a vase on a side table. A coffee cup with steam still rising from it. A newspaper folded open to today's date. Someone had been here recently. Someone was probably still here. "We need to clear the rest of the basement," I said. Rodriguez nodded, but I could tell he was as spooked as I was. This wasn't what we'd expected to find. Drug labs were messy, dangerous, improvised. This looked like someone had spent serious money to create a fully functional medical facility in secret. We moved through the rest of the basement systematically, checking every room, every corridor, every closet. What we found was even more disturbing. There were 6 more operating rooms, all of them clean and functional, a recovery ward with 12 beds, all made up with fresh linens, a pharmacy stocked with medications that should have been disposed of years ago, even a small laboratory with equipment I couldn't begin to identify. And in every room there were signs of recent activity, notes written on whiteboards, computer terminals that were logged in and running, personal items, coffee cups, reading glasses, even a jacket hanging on a chair, like someone had just stepped away. But no people, anywhere. Rodriguez was getting more agitated with each room we checked. "This is fucked up," he kept saying. "This is seriously fucked up." I agreed, but I was trying to stay professional. We had a job to do, and that job was to secure the scene and figure out what was going on. We found the administrative office at the far end of the basement. It was set up like a doctor's office with a desk, filing cabinets, and a computer that was still logged in. The screen showed what looked like patient records, but when I tried to scroll through them, they were password protected. Rodriguez was going through the filing cabinets. Most of them were locked, but one was open and it was full of medical files. Recent files dated within the last 6 months. "Jesus Christ," he said, pulling out a thick folder. "Look at this." The folder contained surgical reports, anesthesia records, post-operative notes, all the paperwork you'd expect to see for major surgery. But the patient names had been blacked out with marker, and the procedures described were unusual. Experimental procedures. Surgical techniques I'd never heard of. Operations that seemed to involve multiple organs. Complex reconstructions. Procedures that would take teams of specialists working for hours, and all of them were dated within the last year. All of them performed in this secret facility beneath an abandoned hospital. "We need to call this in," Rodriguez said. "Get detectives down here, crime scene techs, the whole 9 yards. I agreed, but when I tried my radio, I got nothing but static. The basement was too deep, too isolated. We'd have to go back upstairs to get a signal. That's when we heard the elevator. The building hadn't had power for 4 years, but somewhere above us, an elevator was running. We could hear the mechanical whirring, the ding of floors being passed, the click of doors opening and closing. Rodriguez and I looked at each other. If there was a power for an elevator, then someone was definitely still operating this place. Someone with enough money and influence to keep a fully functional medical facility running in secret. "We're getting out of here," I said. "Right now." But when we got back to the stairwell, the door at the top was locked. The door that had been propped open when we came down was now sealed tight, and the keycard reader was flashing red. Rodriguez tried to force it, putting his shoulder into it, but it was solid steel in a steel frame. We weren't getting through it without explosives. "The service elevator," I said, remembering seeing one at the other end of the basement. We made our way back through the medical facility, past the operating rooms and recovery ward, to a small service elevator tucked away in a corner. The call button was lit up, and when I pressed it, the doors opened immediately, like it had been waiting for us. The elevator was clean and modern, nothing like what you'd expect in an abandoned building. There were buttons for the basement, ground floor, and 5 upper floors. All of them were lit up, indicating that power was running throughout the entire building. Rodriguez and I got in, and I pressed the button for the ground floor. The elevator lurched slightly and began to rise, the floor indicator counting up from B to 1. But when the doors opened, we weren't on the ground floor of an abandoned hospital. We were in what looked like a modern medical facility. Clean hallways, functioning lights, the hum of air conditioning and medical equipment. It was like stepping into a completely different building. "This isn't possible," Rodriguez whispered. But it was real. We could see it, smell it, hear it. Somewhere in the middle of an abandoned hospital, someone had built a fully operational medical center, complete with staff, patients, and procedures that weren't supposed to exist. And as we stood there in that impossible hallway, trying to process what we were seeing, we heard footsteps, multiple sets of footsteps, coming toward us from both directions. We were trapped. The footsteps were measured, professional, not the hurried steps of people trying to escape or hide. These were the footsteps of people who belonged here, people who were simply going about their business. Rodriguez and I drew our weapons again and positioned ourselves back to back in the elevator doorway. If this was some kind of illegal operation, we needed to be ready for anything. The first person to round the corner was a woman in scrubs, blue scrubs, exactly like you'd see in any hospital. She was carrying a clipboard and looked like she was making rounds. When she saw us, she stopped and smiled. "Officers," she said calmly, "you're early. We weren't expecting you until 6. Expecting us like we had an appointment. "Ma'am," I said, keeping my weapon drawn but pointed down, "I need you to identify yourself and explain what's going on here." "Of course," she said, still smiling. "I'm Dr. Sarah Chen, Chief of Surgery. You're here about the Henderson case, aren't you?" Henderson case. I had no idea what she was talking about, but I played along. "That's right. We need to speak with whoever's in charge." "That would be Dr. Morrison. He's in surgery right now, but he should be finished within the hour. Would you like to wait in his office?" Rodriguez was staring at her like she'd grown a second head. A functioning hospital, complete with doctors and surgery, operating in secret beneath an abandoned building. It was impossible, but it was happening. "Ma'am," Rodriguez said, "this building has been closed for 4 years. There's no power, no water, no staff. What is this place?" Dr. Chen's smile never wavered. "I think there's been some confusion, officer. This facility has been operational continuously since 2015. We're a private surgical center specializing in reconstructive procedures. All of our paperwork is in order, I assure you." She pulled out her clipboard and showed us what looked like official documents. Medical licenses, facility permits, inspection certificates. All dated within the last year, all apparently legitimate. "This is impossible," Rodriguez muttered. But the evidence was right in front of us. Clean hallways, functioning equipment, professional staff. Whatever was going on here, it was real, and it was happening right now. Dr. Chen led us down the corridor, past rooms where we could see patients in beds, medical equipment monitoring their vital signs. Through open doorways, we glimpsed nurses making rounds, doctors reviewing charts, all the normal activity of a working hospital. "How many patients do you have here?" I asked. "Currently?" "About 40. We specialize in complex reconstructive surgery, so our patients typically require extended stays. 40 patients in a facility that was supposed to be abandoned. Patients who had somehow been admitted to a hospital that didn't officially exist." We reached Dr. Morrison's office, and Dr. Chen knocked on the door before opening it. The office was exactly what you'd expect from a chief of surgery. Diplomas on the walls, medical journals on the desk, family photos beside the computer. "Please, have a seat, Doctor," Chen said. "Dr. Morrison will be with you shortly. Can I get you coffee? Water?" Rodriguez and I sat down, but we kept our weapons ready. This whole situation was beyond anything in our training. A secret hospital operating under an abandoned building. doctors and nurses who acted like everything was completely normal, patients receiving care in a facility that shouldn't exist. "Dr. Chen," I said, "I need you to explain something to me." We responded to a call about suspicious activity at the old Riverside Medical Center. When we arrived, the building appeared abandoned. But now we're sitting in what appears to be a fully functional hospital. How is that possible? She looked genuinely puzzled. "I'm sorry, officer, but I think you're confused. This is the Riverside Medical Center. We've never been abandoned. We've been treating patients continuously for years. The hospital closed in 2018, Rodriguez said. Budget cuts, the whole thing was in the papers." "I think you may be thinking of a different facility," Dr. Chen said. "Perhaps the old county hospital across town? That one did close a few years ago." She was gaslighting us, had to be. But she seemed so sincere, so genuinely confused by our questions, like she honestly believed what she was saying. The door opened, and a man in surgical scrubs walked in. He was older, maybe 60, with graying hair and the confident bearing of someone used to being in charge. "Dr. Morrison," Dr. Chen said. "These are the officers here about the Henderson case." Dr. Morrison shook our hands like we were old friends. "Officers, thank you for coming. I know this is unusual, but we appreciate your discretion in this matter." "Dr. Morrison," I said, "I need you to explain what's going on here. This building is supposed to be abandoned." He looked as confused as Dr. Chen had. "Abandoned? I'm sorry, officers, but there must be some mistake. This facility has been operational for years. We have all the proper licenses and permits." He went to his desk and pulled out a folder full of documents. Medical licenses, business permits, inspection certificates. All legitimate looking, all recent. "Perhaps there's been some confusion with the paperwork," he said. "Bureaucratic mix-ups happen all the time, but I can assure you we're a legitimate medical facility." Rodriguez was getting frustrated. "Sir, with all due respect, we were called here because someone reported suspicious activity at an abandoned hospital. When we arrived, the building appeared empty and without power. Now you're telling us this is a functioning hospital that's been operating for years?" "I understand your confusion, Doctor," Morrison said. "But you can see for yourself that we're very much operational. Perhaps whoever called you was mistaken about the location. It was possible, but it didn't feel right. The tire tracks, the open doors, the fresh cut in the fence, all of that had led us here. And now we were supposed to believe it was all a misunderstanding." "Dr. Morrison," I said, "you mentioned the Henderson case. What exactly is that about?" "Ah, yes, Thomas Henderson, one of our patients. He underwent reconstructive surgery 3 weeks ago, and there have been some complications. We thought it best to notify the authorities." "What kind of complications?" Dr. Morrison looked uncomfortable. "Perhaps it would be better if you saw for yourself. Mr. Henderson has been asking to speak with police officers. He's made some rather serious accusations." Rodriguez and I exchanged glances. Finally, something that made sense. A patient with complaints, possibly about medical malpractice or unauthorized procedures. That was something we could investigate. "We'd like to speak with Mr. Henderson," I said. "Of course. Dr. Chen, would you escort the officers to Mr. Henderson's room?" As we left the office, Rodriguez leaned over and whispered, "Something's not right about this place." I agreed, but I couldn't put my finger on what it was. Everything looked legitimate, everyone was being cooperative, but something felt wrong. Like we were seeing only what someone wanted us to see. Dr. Chen led us to the elevator and pressed the button for the 3rd floor. As we rose, I tried to piece together what was happening. a secret hospital operating in an abandoned building. Doctors and staff who insisted everything was normal. A patient who wanted to speak with police. The elevator doors opened onto another clean, well-lit corridor. More patient rooms, more medical equipment, more signs of a functioning hospital. But as we walked toward Henderson's room, I started noticing details that bothered me. The patients we could see in the rooms were all heavily bandaged. Not just regular post-operative bandages, but extensive wrappings that covered most of their bodies. And they were all completely, still, like they were sedated or unconscious. "Are all your patients under sedation?" I asked. "Most of them," Dr. Chen said. "Reconstructive surgery is very painful. We keep them comfortable during recovery." We stopped at room 312. Dr. Chen knocked softly and opened the door. "Mr. Henderson, the police officers are here to see you." The man in the bed was awake, but barely. His head was wrapped in bandages with only his eyes and mouth visible. When he saw us, he tried to sit up, but he was too weak. "Officers," he whispered. "Thank God. I need to tell you what they're doing here." Henderson's voice was barely audible, and when he tried to speak, it was clear he was in considerable pain. Dr. Chen moved to check his IV, but he waved her away weakly. "Please," he said to us, "I need to talk to you alone." Dr. Chen looked uncomfortable. "Mr. Henderson needs his rest. Perhaps this could wait until—" "No," Henderson interrupted, with more strength than I expected. "I've been waiting 3 weeks for someone to listen to me." I looked at Rodriguez, then back at Dr. Chen. "We need a few minutes alone with Mr. Henderson." She hesitated, then nodded. "I'll be right outside if you need anything." After she left, Henderson struggled to sit up higher in his bed. The effort clearly cost him, but his eyes were alert and focused. "Officers, I don't know how much time I have before they come back. I need you to understand. This place isn't what they're telling you it is." "What do you mean?" Rodriguez asked. 3 weeks ago, I was brought here for what they said was reconstructive surgery, facial reconstruction after a car accident, but that's not what they did to me." Henderson tried to reach up to touch his bandages, but his hands were restrained to the bed rails. "I hadn't noticed that before." "Why are you restrained, Mr. Henderson?" "They say it's to prevent me from disturbing the surgical sites, but I think it's to keep me from seeing what they've done." A chill ran down my spine. "What do you think they've done?" "I don't think they reconstructed my face, officers. I think they gave me someone else's face." Rodriguez and I looked at each other. Face transplants were real medical procedures, but they were extremely rare and required extensive approval processes. They weren't the kind of thing that happened in secret facilities. "Mr. Henderson," I said carefully, "that's a very serious accusation. What makes you think that's what happened? Because when they change my bandages, when they think I'm unconscious from the pain medication, I can see their faces, the doctors, the nurses. They look satisfied, like they've accomplished something important. And they talk about a matching and compatibility and successful integration. Have you seen your face in a mirror? They won't let me have a mirror. They say it's too early, that seeing the surgical site would be traumatic. But I can feel it, officers. I can feel that it's not my face." Henderson's voice was getting weaker, but his conviction was clear. He believed what he was telling us, but belief and reality weren't always the same thing. Post-surgical patients often had distorted perceptions, especially when they were on heavy pain medication. "Mr. Henderson, facial reconstruction surgery is complex. It's normal for everything to feel different during recovery." "No," he said firmly. "This is different. The bone structure feels wrong. The way my teeth align is different. Even my voice sounds different to me. I had to admit, his voice did sound strange, like he was speaking through swollen tissue or with an unfamiliar mouth shape. There's more, Henderson continued. The other patients here, I've heard them talking when they think I'm asleep. They're all saying the same things. That they came in for one procedure and got something else. That they don't feel like themselves anymore. How many other patients are there? I don't know exactly. Dozens, maybe more. And they're all heavily sedated most of the time. I think I'm only awake because my body isn't processing the medication the way they expected. Rodriguez leaned closer. Mr. Henderson, this is a very serious allegation. If what you're saying is true, we're talking about major medical crimes. Are you certain about what you're telling us? I know how it sounds. I know it seems impossible, but I need you to investigate. I need you to find out what's really happening here. Have you tried to leave? To demand to be discharged. Henderson laughed bitterly. They say I'm not ready, that I need weeks more recovery. But I think the real reason is that they can't let me leave looking like this. They need time to perfect whatever they've done. I was starting to feel sick. If Henderson was right, if this facility was performing unauthorized surgeries, possibly using parts from multiple people, then we were looking at crimes that went far beyond medical malpractice. Mr. Henderson, I need you to think carefully. Before your surgery, did you sign any unusual consent forms? Anything that might have authorized experimental procedures? I signed standard surgical consent forms, but I was heavily medicated from the accident. I might not have understood everything they put in front of me. The door opened, and Dr. Chen returned. I'm sorry, officers, but Mr. Henderson needs his medication now. He's been without pain relief for too long. I could see Henderson's eyes widen with fear. Don't let them sedate me again, please. Every time they do, I lose hours, sometimes days. It's for your own good, Mr. Henderson, Doctor, Chen said, preparing a syringe. The pain will be unbearable without medication. Officers, Henderson pleaded. You have to investigate. Look at the other patients. Check the surgical records. Find out where they're getting the materials for these procedures. Dr. Chen injected something into Henderson's IV line, and within seconds his eyes began to glaze over, but he fought it, struggling to stay conscious. Check the basement, he whispered. The cold storage room, that's where they keep. His voice trailed off as the medication took effect, and his head fell back against the pillow. What was he trying to say? Rodriguez asked Dr. Chen. Mr. Henderson is experiencing some paranoid delusions as a side effect of his pain medication, she explained. It's not uncommon in cases of extensive facial reconstruction. Patients often feel disconnected from their own bodies during recovery. Dr. Chen, I said, we're going to need to see Mr. Henderson's medical records, all of them. Of course, officers, but you'll need to speak with Dr. Morrison about that. Patient confidentiality laws, you understand. As we left Henderson's room, Rodriguez grabbed my arm. We need to call this in. Get detectives, crime scene techs, maybe even the FBI down here. I agreed, but something was bothering me. Rodriguez, didn't you notice something odd about the way Dr. Chen handled that syringe? What do you mean? She prepared it while we were talking, but she didn't check Henderson's chart, didn't verify the dosage, didn't follow any of the standard safety protocols. It was like she already knew exactly what to give him. You think she was trying to shut him up? I think we need to be very careful about who we trust in this place. We made our way back to the elevator, but as we waited for it to arrive, I heard something that made my blood run cold. Through the door of one of the other patient rooms, I could hear a voice. Weak, muffled by bandages but clearly audible. The voice was saying the same thing Henderson had said, almost word for word. "Officers, I need to tell you what they're doing here." But we hadn't visited any other patients. We'd only spoken to Henderson. Rodriguez heard it too. What the hell? The elevator arrived, and Dr. Chen gestured for us to get in. But as the doors closed, I could swear I heard that same voice coming from multiple rooms. Different patients, all saying the same words, all pleading for help in exactly the same way, like they'd all been programmed to say the same thing. The elevator descended in silence, but my mind was racing. If multiple patients were saying exactly the same words Henderson had used, then either this was the most bizarre coincidence in medical history or something much more sinister was happening. Rodriguez was thinking the same thing. "That's not possible," he whispered. "People don't just say identical things spontaneously." Dr. Chen seemed oblivious to our conversation. She was checking something on her clipboard, humming softly to herself like nothing unusual had happened. When the elevator opened on the ground floor, Dr. Morrison was waiting for us. "Officers, I hope Mr. Henderson was helpful. As I mentioned, he's been experiencing some difficulties with his recovery." "Dr. Morrison," I said, "we're going to need to see all of Mr. Henderson's medical records. And we'd like to speak with some of your other patients as well." "Of course. Though I should mention that most of our patients are heavily sedated during recovery. You might not get very coherent responses from them. That's fine. We just need to ask a few questions." Dr. Morrison led us down a different corridor, one we hadn't seen before. This area looked older, more institutional. The walls were painted that particular shade of green you only see in old hospitals, and the floors were worn linoleum instead of the modern surfaces we'd seen elsewhere. "This is our long-term care ward," Dr. Morrison explained. "Patients who require extended recovery periods." We passed several rooms where I could see patients lying in beds, all heavily bandaged, all completely motionless. The silence was unnerving. In a normal hospital, you'd hear conversation, television, some signs of life. But this ward was as quiet as a morgue. "How long do patients typically stay here?" Rodriguez asked. "It varies. Reconstructive surgery is complex, and full recovery can take months. Some patients require multiple procedures." We stopped at a room marked Johnson, Robert. Dr. Morrison knocked and entered without waiting for a response. The patient in the bed looked exactly like Henderson had, extensively bandaged, with only his eyes and mouth visible. When he saw us, he tried to sit up. "Officers," he said in a weak voice, "thank God. I need to tell you what they're doing here." The exact same words, the exact same inflection, even the same gesture of trying to sit up. Rodriguez and I exchanged glances. This was impossible unless— "Mr. Johnson," I said carefully, "can you tell me your full name and date of birth?" The patient looked confused for a moment, like he was trying to remember. My name is Robert Johnson. I was born. He trailed off, looking frustrated and frightened. "It's the medication," Dr. Morrison explained. "Short-term memory issues are common during recovery." We visited 3 more patients, and each one said exactly the same thing in exactly the same way. "Officers, thank God, I need to tell you what they're doing here." But none of them could provide any details beyond that initial statement. None of them could remember their own names or why they were there. It was like they'd all been programmed with the same script, but nothing else. "Dr. Morrison," I said as we left the last room, "I need to see your patient intake records. Something's not right here." "I understand your concern, officer, but as I'm sure you know, patient confidentiality laws are very strict. I can't just— Dr. Morrison, we're conducting a police investigation. You can either cooperate voluntarily, or we can come back with a warrant." His friendly demeanor slipped for just a moment. I saw something flash in his eyes, annoyance, maybe even anger. But then he smiled again. "Of course, officers, I want to cooperate fully. Let me take you to our records office." He led us deeper into the building, past areas that looked increasingly run down. The modern medical facility gradually gave way to something that looked more like the abandoned hospital we'd originally entered. "We're in the process of renovating this section," Dr. Morrison explained as we walked through a corridor with peeling paint and water-stained ceiling tiles. But I was starting to suspect that this was the real building. The clean, modern areas we'd seen earlier were the renovation, a facade built to hide what was really happening here. We reached a door marked "Records" in faded letters. Dr. Morrison unlocked it and led us into a room lined with filing cabinets. But these weren't modern medical files. These were old yellowed folders stuffed with loose papers. "Our digital records are being updated, Doctor," Morrison said, pulling out several thick folders. "But these should have the information you need." I opened the first folder, Henderson, Thomas, and immediately saw that something was wrong. The intake form was dated 3 weeks ago, but the handwriting looked old and faded. The paper itself felt aged, like it had been sitting in that cabinet for years. And the information on the form didn't match what Henderson had told us. According to the file, he'd been admitted for experimental reconstructive procedures and had signed consent forms for advanced surgical techniques, including but not limited to tissue grafting, bone restructuring, and facial reconstruction using donor materials. Donor materials. That meant parts from other people. Rodriguez was looking through another file. "This one's even worse," he said. "Listen to this. Patient consents to full facial reconstruction using available donor materials. Patient understands that original facial structure will be completely replaced and that psychological adjustment period may be extensive." "These aren't medical files," I said. "These are consent forms for experimental procedures that no ethical doctor would perform." Dr. Morrison was watching us carefully. "Officers, I think there may be some misunderstanding about the nature of our work here." "What kind of misunderstanding?" "We're a research facility. We perform procedures that aren't available at conventional hospitals. Our patients come to us specifically because they want access to experimental treatments." "Dr. Morrison, these files describe procedures that sound more like mutilation than medicine." "That's a very harsh word, officer. We prefer to think of it as advanced reconstructive surgery." I was getting angry. If these files were accurate, then this facility was performing unauthorized experimental surgery on people who might not have fully understood what they were consenting to. "We need to see the basement," I said. Henderson mentioned a cold storage room. Dr. Morrison's expression darkened. "I'm afraid that area is restricted. Sterile surgical areas, you understand." "Dr. Morrison, we're police officers conducting an investigation. We need access to all areas of this facility." "I'm sorry, but I can't allow that without proper authorization. Perhaps if you could come back with a warrant." "We don't need a warrant for an active investigation," Rodriguez interrupted. "Especially if we have reason to believe crimes are being committed." The friendly mask was slipping away completely now. Dr. Morrison stood straighter, and his voice took on a harder edge. "Officers, I think you're overstepping your authority here. This is a private medical facility with very strict protocols. I'm going to have to ask you to leave." "We're not leaving until we've completed our investigation. Then I'll have to call security." Dr. Morrison reached for a phone on the desk, but I stepped forward and placed my hand over it. "Sir, if you interfere with a police investigation, you'll be placed under arrest." Now, we can do this the easy way or the hard way, but we're going to see that basement." For a long moment, we stared at each other. Then Dr. Morrison smiled, but it wasn't the friendly smile he'd worn earlier. This smile was cold, calculating. "Very well, officers. If you insist on seeing the basement, I'll take you there myself." He led us out of the records room and down another corridor I hadn't seen before. This one was definitely part of the original hospital. Cracked walls, flickering fluorescent lights, the smell of mold and decay getting stronger with each step. "I should warn you," Dr. Morrison said as we walked. "What you're about to see may be disturbing. We perform procedures here that push the boundaries of conventional medicine." "What kind of procedures?" Rodriguez asked. "Reconstructive surgery using cadaveric materials, face transplants, limb reattachment, complex tissue grafting, the kind of work that most hospitals won't attempt." We reached another stairwell, this one older and more worn than the one we'd used earlier. Dr. Morrison led us down 2 flights to what appeared to be a sub-basement. The smell hit us immediately. Not the antiseptic smell of the upper floors, but something organic and wrong, like meat that had been sitting too long in a warm room. "Jesus," Rodriguez whispered, covering his nose. Dr. Morrison seemed unaffected by the smell. "The preservation chemicals can be overwhelming at first. You'll get used to it." We followed him down a narrow corridor lined with doors, marked with numbers rather than names. The lighting was dim, and I could hear the hum of refrigeration equipment coming from behind several of the doors. "This is our tissue storage facility," Dr. Morrison explained. "We maintain a large inventory of donor materials for our procedures." He stopped at a door marked Storage Room 7 and unlocked it with a key from his pocket. "This is what Mr. Henderson was referring to," he said, pushing the door open. The room beyond was filled with stainless steel tables, each covered with a white sheet. The refrigeration units lined the walls, their compressors humming constantly to maintain temperature. But it was what was on the tables that made my stomach turn. Under each sheet was a human form. Not complete bodies, but parts. Heads, torsos, limbs, all carefully preserved and labeled with tags that looked like something you'd see in a morgue. "Dr. Morrison," I said, fighting to keep my voice steady, "where did you get these materials?" "From our donor program, of course. People who've signed agreements to donate their bodies to medical research after death." But as I looked more closely at the tables, I noticed something that made my blood run cold. Some of the forms under the sheets were too small to be adults. They looked like children. "Dr. Morrison, are those children?" "Some of our procedures require pediatric materials. It's unfortunate but necessary for certain types of reconstruction." Rodriguez was backing toward the door. "This is sick. This is fucking sick. Officer, please control yourself. This is legitimate medical research." But I was starting to understand what Henderson had been trying to tell us. This wasn't just about unauthorized surgery. This was about something much worse. "Dr. Morrison, I need to see your donor consent forms. All of them." "I'm afraid that's confidential information." "No, it's evidence in a criminal investigation." I pulled out my phone to call for backup, but I had no signal. The basement was too deep, too isolated. "Dr. Morrison, we're going back upstairs, and we're calling for additional units. This facility is now a crime scene." "I'm afraid I can't allow that, officers." Something in his voice made me turn around. Dr. Morrison was no longer alone. 3 men in scrubs had appeared behind him, and they were all carrying syringes. "Officers," Dr. Morrison said calmly, "I think you've seen enough for one evening." Rodriguez and I drew our weapons, but we were trapped in a small room with only one exit, and that exit was blocked by 4 people who clearly meant us harm. Dr. Morrison, step aside. We're leaving now. I'm sorry, but I can't let you leave with this information. You understand? What information? That you're running an illegal medical facility? That we're conducting research that could revolutionize reconstructive surgery. Work that narrow-minded people like you would shut down before we could complete it. By cutting up children? By performing unauthorized surgery on people who don't know what they're consenting to. By pushing the boundaries of what's possible. By refusing to be limited by conventional ethics. The men with syringes started moving closer. Rodriguez and I backed further into the room, but there was nowhere to go. Officers, Dr. Morrison continued, what you've seen here tonight is the future of medicine. We're learning how to rebuild human beings from the ground up. How to give people new faces, new bodies, new lives. By taking parts from others. By using materials that would otherwise be wasted. Do you have any idea how many people die every day with perfectly good organs and tissues that could be used to help others? Those people didn't consent to being harvested for your experiments. Consent is a luxury we can't always afford when we're trying to save lives. One of the men with syringes lunged forward. Rodriguez fired, the shot echoing in the confined space. The man went down, but the other two kept coming. I fired at Dr. Morrison, but he ducked behind one of the steel tables. The sheet fell away, revealing what looked like the torso of a young woman, cut open and partially dissected. Rodriguez, we need to get out of here. But Rodriguez was struggling with one of the men, fighting to keep the syringe away from his neck. I moved to help him, but the third man grabbed me from behind. I felt the sharp sting of a needle penetrating my neck, and immediately everything started to get fuzzy. The room began to spin, and I could feel my strength draining away. Don't worry, officers, Dr. Morrison said as I collapsed to the floor. When you wake up, you'll be part of something much more important than police work. The last thing I remember before losing consciousness was seeing Rodriguez fall beside me, a syringe sticking out of his arm. I woke up strapped to a hospital bed. My head was pounding, my mouth felt like cotton, and my vision was blurry. But I was awake, which meant I was still alive. That was something. I tried to move, but leather restraints held my wrists and ankles to the bed frame. Standard hospital restraints, the kind used for psychiatric patients or people who might hurt themselves. The room I was in looked like a standard hospital room, but there were no windows. Just white walls, fluorescent lighting, and medical equipment I didn't recognize. An IV was running into my left arm, feeding me something that kept me groggy but conscious. Officer Walsh, good, you're awake. Dr. Morrison entered the room carrying a clipboard. He was still wearing scrubs, but now he also had a surgical cap and mask hanging around his neck. Where's my partner? Officer Rodriguez is fine. He's in the room next door, recovering from his sedation. What did you do to us? Nothing permanent, yet. We needed time to decide what to do with you. Dr. Morrison pulled up a chair and sat down beside my bed, like we were having a friendly conversation. Officers, I want you to understand something. What we're doing here isn't evil, it's necessary. Do you have any idea how many people suffer from severe facial deformities, from burn injuries, from birth defects that make them unable to function in society? So, you steal body parts from dead children? We use available materials to help people who have no other options. Every face we transplant, every limb we reattach, every reconstruction we perform, it gives someone a chance at a normal life by taking it away from someone else, by using materials from people who no longer need them. I was starting to understand the scope of what was happening here. This wasn't just about unauthorized surgery. This was about a systematic operation to harvest body parts and use them in experimental procedures. Dr. Morrison, how long has this been going on? Years. We started small, working with legitimate donor materials. But the demand for our services grew, and the supply of conventional donors couldn't keep up. So, you started killing people. We started being more creative in our sourcing methods. The casual way he said it made my skin crawl. He was talking about murder like it was a business decision. The missing persons reports, I said. The people who disappeared after being patients here became donors themselves, in a way. Their bodies provided materials for other patients. You're describing a mass murder operation. I'm describing a medical research program that's saved dozens of lives. Dr. Morrison stood up and checked something on one of the machines. The question now, officers, is what to do with you. What do you mean? Well, we can't let you leave. You've seen too much, know too much. But we also can't simply eliminate you. Missing police officers would attract too much attention. So, what's your plan? We're going to give you new faces, new identities. You'll become someone else entirely, and Officer Walsh and Officer Rodriguez will simply disappear. The full horror of what he was proposing hit me. They were going to kill us and use our bodies for parts, then give our faces to other people. You're insane. I'm practical. This way, you get to live, just not as yourselves, and we get to continue our work without interference. Our department will look for us. When we don't report in, your department thinks you're working an undercover assignment. Officer Martinez filed the paperwork this morning. Martinez, our backup, who was supposed to be 20 minutes out, who had never shown up. Martinez is working with you. Officer Martinez has been very helpful in identifying potential donors and keeping unwanted attention away from our facility. A cop on the payroll. That explained how they'd been operating for so long without being caught. How many others? How many cops are involved in this? Enough. We have people in the department, in the medical examiner's office, in city government. People who understand the importance of our work. I tested the restraints, but they were solid. There was no way I was getting out of them without help. Dr. Morrison, people will ask questions. Our families, our friends. We'll be told that you died in the line of duty. Very tragic. There will be funerals, honor guards, the whole ceremony. But the bodies in the coffins won't be yours. What happens to our real bodies? They'll be put to good use. Your faces will go to burn victims, your organs to people who need transplants. Nothing will be wasted. He was describing our dismemberment like he was planning a dinner menu. When? I asked. Tomorrow morning. We need time to prepare the recipients and coordinate the procedures. Multiple surgeries happening simultaneously. It's quite complex. Recipients? The people who'll be getting your parts. We have a client who's been waiting months for Officer Rodriguez's particular facial structure. And your hands will go to a pianist who lost his in an accident. You've been planning this. We've been preparing for various contingencies. When you walked into our facility tonight, you became available inventory. Dr. Morrison checked his watch. I need to go coordinate the surgical schedule. Try to get some rest, Officer Walsh. Tomorrow will be a very long day. He left the room, and I heard the door lock behind him. I was alone, strapped to a bed, waiting to be murdered and harvested for parts. But I was still alive, which meant there was still hope. I started working on the restraints, testing them for weaknesses. The leather was old and worn, and the buckles were standard hospital equipment. If I could find a way to get enough leverage... It took me over an hour, but I finally managed to work my left hand free. The restraint had been designed to prevent patients from hurting themselves, not to hold someone who was actively trying to escape. Once I had one hand free, the rest was easier. I released my other hand, then my ankles, and sat up on the edge of the bed. The IV in my arm was still running, probably keeping me sedated. I pulled it out, ignoring the sharp pain and the blood that started flowing from the puncture wound. Immediately, my head started to clear. Whatever they'd been giving me was wearing off, and I could think more clearly. I needed to find Rodriguez, get our weapons back, and call for backup. But first, I needed to understand the layout of this place and figure out how many people we were dealing with. I crept to the door and listened. The hallway outside was quiet, but I could hear voices coming from somewhere nearby. Medical staff making rounds, maybe, or preparing for tomorrow's procedures. I tried the door handle, expecting it to be locked, but it turned freely. Either they were overconfident, or they thought the sedation would keep me unconscious until morning. The hallway outside looked like the upper floors we'd seen earlier, clean, modern, well lit, but now I knew it was all a facade hiding something much darker. I could see light coming from under the door across the hall. If Rodriguez was in the room next door, that had to be it. I crossed the hallway as quietly as possible and tried the handle. Also unlocked. Rodriguez was strapped to a bed identical to mine, but he was still unconscious. An IV line was running into his arm, and his breathing was slow and regular. "Rodriguez," I whispered, shaking his shoulder gently. "Wake up." He stirred but didn't open his eyes. Whatever they'd given him was stronger than what I'd received, or he'd gotten a larger dose. I removed his IV and started working on his restraints. It took several minutes to get him free, and by the time I finished, he was starting to come around. "Walsh?" he mumbled. Where are we?" "Still in the hospital. They drugged us, tied us up. They're planning to kill us tomorrow." That got his attention. Rodriguez sat up, shaking his head to clear it. "Kill us?" "Harvest our body parts for their surgeries. We need to get out of here." Rodriguez was still groggy, but he was functional. "Our weapons? Probably in their security office, but first we need to call for backup." "No signal down here." "Then we go up, find a phone, a radio, anything." We crept out of Rodriguez's room and down the hallway. The voices I'd heard earlier were coming from an office at the end of the corridor. Through the open door, I could see Dr. Morrison and Dr. Chen reviewing what looked like surgical schedules. "The facial reconstruction on Walsh is scheduled for 0800, Dr. Chen was saying. "Dr. Patterson will handle the initial incisions, and you'll supervise the harvesting." "What about Rodriguez?" "His procedure starts at 0900. The client specifically requested his jaw structure, so we'll need to be very careful with the bone work." They were discussing our murders like routine medical procedures. Rodriguez and I backtracked to the elevator. We needed to get to the upper floors, find a way to communicate with the outside world and get help. But when the elevator doors opened, we found ourselves face to face with two security guards. The guards were big men, probably former military, wearing dark uniforms and carrying tasers instead of guns. They looked surprised to see us, but they recovered quickly. "Gentlemen," the first guard said, "you're supposed to be in your rooms." "We're leaving," I said, trying to sound more confident than I felt. "I'm afraid that's not possible." The second guard reached for his taser, but Rodriguez moved faster. Years of patrol work had given him good reflexes, and he tackled the guard before he could draw his weapon. I went for the first guard, but he was ready for me. We struggled in the elevator doorway, fighting for control of his taser. Behind us, Rodriguez and the other guard were rolling on the floor, throwing punches. The taser went off, sending an electric shock through both of us. But I managed to hold on, and the guard took the worst of it. He went down hard, twitching from the electrical current. Rodriguez had gotten his guard in a chokehold and was cutting off his air supply. After a few seconds, the man went limp. "Are they dead?" Rodriguez asked. I checked for pulses. Both men were unconscious but breathing. "No, but they won't be out long. We need to move." We dragged the guards into the elevator and took their tasers. Not as good as our service weapons, but better than nothing. The elevator rose to the ground floor, and the doors opened onto the same modern medical facility we'd seen earlier. But now it felt different, more sinister. Every doctor and nurse we saw was potentially involved in the murder operation. "We need to find a phone," Rodriguez said, "and our weapons and evidence." We moved carefully through the corridors, staying in the shadows, avoiding the medical staff. The facility was busy even at this hour. Night shift nurses making rounds, doctors reviewing charts, orderlies moving equipment. All of them participating in or covering up mass murder. We found a bank of payphones near what looked like a main entrance. I picked up one of the phones and dialed 911. Nothing. No dial tone, no connection. "Phone lines must be controlled," Rodriguez said, "or disconnected entirely." I tried my cell phone, but still no signal. They were jamming communications somehow, or the building was constructed to block radio signals. "We need to get outside," I said. But when we reached the main entrance, we found it locked and reinforced with steel bars. This wasn't just a hospital, it was a prison. "Fire exit," Rodriguez suggested. We found an emergency exit at the end of a corridor, but it was also locked and had an alarm system attached. If we opened it, everyone in the building would know we were trying to escape. "We don't have a choice," I said. "We trigger the alarm, we run, and we hope we can get far enough away to call for help." Rodriguez nodded. "On 3. 1, 2. The alarm was deafening when we pushed through the door. Immediately, lights started flashing throughout the building, and we could hear voices shouting orders. We ran across the parking lot toward the fence line, but we could already see security guards pouring out of the building behind us. More guards than we'd seen before. This place had serious security. The fence was 12 feet high and topped with razor wire. We might be able to climb it, but not quickly, and not without getting cut up. "This way," Rodriguez said, heading toward the loading dock where we'd originally entered. We could hear vehicles starting up behind us. Security was mobilizing fast, and they had radios to coordinate their search. The loading dock door was still open, but now it felt like a trap. If we went back inside, we'd be walking into the arms of people who wanted to kill us. But if we stayed outside, we'd be caught by security and dragged back in anyway. The service tunnel, I remembered. Henderson mentioned a service tunnel that led to the loading dock. We ran inside and found the tunnel entrance I'd seen during our first visit. It was narrow and dark, but it led away from the main building. Behind us, we could hear boots on concrete as security guards entered the loading dock. The tunnel was longer than I'd expected, and it branched in several directions. We took the passage that seemed to lead furthest from the hospital, moving as quietly as we could. After what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes, we emerged from a drainage pipe about a quarter-mile from the hospital. We were in a wooded area, hidden from view, but close enough to see the lights and activity around the main building. "We need to get to a phone," Rodriguez said. "There's a gas station about 2 miles down the road. If we can get there." "Walsh." I turned around and saw Dr. Morrison standing behind us. He wasn't alone. He had 6 guards with him, all armed with tasers and what looked like tranquilizer guns. "Gentlemen, you've caused quite a commotion, but it's over now." Dr. Morrison, You're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, kidnapping, and... I'm afraid you're not in a position to arrest anyone, Officer Walsh. The guards spread out, surrounding us. We had 2 tasers against 6 armed men. The odds weren't good. You can't keep doing this, Rodriguez said. People will start asking questions, missing cops, disappearing patients. Someone will figure it out. Officer Rodriguez, we've been operating for years without detection. A few more missing persons won't make any difference. The federal government will investigate. The FBI has several agents who understand the value of our work, just like your local department has officers who appreciate what we're accomplishing. The corruption went deeper than I'd imagined. This wasn't just a rogue medical facility. It was a network that included law enforcement at multiple levels. Dr. Morrison, I said, what's the end game here? How long do you think you can keep killing people for spare parts? Officer Walsh, you're thinking too small. What we're doing here is just the beginning. We're developing techniques that will revolutionize medicine. Within 10 years, we'll be able to rebuild entire human beings from scratch, using parts stolen from murder victims, using materials acquired through whatever means necessary. Do you think the first heart transplant was performed using ethically sourced organs? Do you think any major medical breakthrough was achieved without someone pushing the boundaries of acceptable practice? Those doctors weren't serial killers. Those doctors were visionaries who understood that progress requires sacrifice. Dr. Morrison signaled to his guards, and they started closing in on us. Officers, you have 2 choices. Come back with us willingly, and your deaths will be quick and painless. Your bodies will be used to save lives, and your sacrifice will have meaning. Or fight us, and spend your last hours experiencing the full range of suffering we can inflict. We choose option 3, Rodriguez said. Which is? Rodriguez pulled the pin on a grenade. It took me a second to realize what he was doing. During our struggle with the guards in the elevator, he must have taken more than just a taser. He'd somehow gotten his hands on military-grade equipment. Everyone back the fuck up, Rodriguez shouted, or we all go together. Dr. Morrison's eyes widened. Officer Rodriguez, be reasonable. There's no need for... 5 seconds, Doc. You and your boys start walking away, or I drop this and we all have a really bad day. The guards looked at Dr. Morrison for instructions. He was weighing his options. Call Rodriguez's bluff, or retreat and regroup. 4 seconds. Stand down, Dr. Morrison ordered his men. Fall back to the perimeter. The guards backed away, but they didn't go far. They were still within range if Rodriguez was serious about using the grenade. Rodriguez, I whispered, please tell me you have a plan. Working on it, he whispered back. But I could see the problem. Even if Rodriguez was willing to use the grenade, it would kill us too. And if he wasn't willing to use it, Dr. Morrison would figure that out soon enough. We needed a miracle. That's when we heard the helicopters. The sound of rotor blades filled the night air, coming from multiple directions. Spotlights swept across the wooded area, and I could hear vehicles approaching on the road. Dr. Morrison looked genuinely surprised for the first time since we'd met him. That's impossible, he said. We control local law enforcement. There shouldn't be any response units. Local, maybe, I said, recognizing the distinctive sound of federal aircraft. But that's FBI. The helicopters were getting closer, and I could see additional vehicles surrounding the hospital. Dozens of them, moving in a coordinated pattern that suggested a major federal operation. Dr. Morrison, I called out, I think your network just got compromised. One of the helicopters was descending toward our location, its spotlight illuminating the entire area. Dr. Morrison and his guards were caught in the open, and there was nowhere for them to run. "Drop your weapons," a voice boomed from the helicopter's loudspeaker. "This is the FBI. You are surrounded." Dr. Morrison looked at his guards, then at us, then at the helicopter. His empire was collapsing around him, and he knew it. "How?" he asked. "Martinez," I said, putting the pieces together. "You said he filed paperwork saying we were on an undercover assignment, but Martinez doesn't have the authority to approve undercover work. Someone would have checked on that." The helicopter touched down about 50 yards away, and armed agents poured out. More agents were emerging from the woods around us, all wearing tactical gear and carrying serious firepower. "Drop your weapons now," the lead agent shouted. Dr. Morrison's guards looked at each other, then at the overwhelming federal response surrounding them. One by one, they dropped their tasers and raised their hands. But Dr. Morrison wasn't giving up. "You don't understand what you're stopping," he yelled at the FBI agents. "We're on the verge of breakthroughs that could save thousands of lives. Sir, get on the ground now. We're advancing human knowledge. We're pushing the boundaries of what's possible. Sir, this is your final warning." Dr. Morrison pulled something from his pocket, a small device that looked like a remote control. "If I can't continue my work," he said, "then no one can benefit from it." He pressed a button on the device. For a moment, nothing happened. Then we heard a series of explosions coming from the direction of the hospital. Not huge explosions, but enough to destroy equipment and eliminate evidence. "He's destroying the facility," Rodriguez said. The FBI agents rushed Dr. Morrison, tackling him before he could trigger any more charges. He went down hard, the remote control flying out of his hands. Officers Walsh and Rodriguez, the lead FBI agent, approached us. "I'm Special Agent Sarah Chen." Rodriguez still had the grenade in his hand. "Agent Chen, how did you know we were here?" "Officer Martinez, when he couldn't reach you for your check-in, he contacted federal authorities. He suspected something was wrong and gave us your last known location. So Martinez hadn't been corrupted after all. He'd been trying to protect us." "Agent Chen," I said, "there are patients in that building. People who may have been surgically altered against their will. We're aware. We've been investigating this operation for months, but we needed someone on the inside to confirm what was happening." "You've been investigating for months?" "Dr. Morrison's network extends across multiple states. We've identified similar facilities in 6 other locations, all performing unauthorized surgical procedures." More explosions came from the hospital, and smoke was starting to rise from several windows. "The patients," Rodriguez said. "We need to get them out." "Emergency medical teams are already on site," Agent Chen assured us. "Everyone will be evacuated and receive proper medical care." I watched the hospital burning in the distance and thought about all the people who had suffered in that place. Henderson, if he was still alive. The other patients who'd been programmed to say the same words. The victims whose body parts had been harvested for Dr. Morrison's experiments. "Agent Chen, how many people did they kill?" "We're still determining the full scope, but based on our investigation, we believe the number is in the hundreds. Hundreds of people murdered for their organs, their faces, their limbs, all in the name of advancing medical science." "What happens now?" Rodriguez asked. "You'll be debriefed, of course. Your testimony will be crucial in prosecuting not just Dr. Morrison, but the entire network of people who made this possible." As the FBI agents led Dr. Morrison away, he looked back at us one more time. "You think you've won something," he called out, "but you've just set medical progress back decades. The people who could have been helped by our work will suffer because of your narrow-minded morality. Dr. Morrison, I said, there's nothing moral about murder. There's nothing moral about letting people suffer when you have the power to help them. Even in defeat, even facing life in prison, he still believed he was the hero of his own story. The FBI agents put him in a vehicle and drove away. Dr. Morrison disappeared into the night, but the damage he'd done would take years to fully understand. Rodriguez and I gave our statements to Agent Chen and the other federal investigators. We told them everything we'd seen, everything we'd discovered, every detail we could remember about the facility and the people who ran it. As the sun came up, we watched the last of the smoke clear from the hospital building. Emergency medical teams were still evacuating patients, loading them into ambulances to be taken to legitimate hospitals where they could receive proper care. "Think any of them will recover?" Rodriguez asked. "Physically, maybe. Psychologically. I don't know how you come back from something like this." "Think we'll come back from it?" I didn't have an answer for that. We'd seen things that would stay with us forever. We'd learned that the system we'd sworn to protect and serve was riddled with corruption. We'd discovered that monsters could hide behind medical degrees and institutional authority. But we'd also learned that there were people like Agent Chen and her team. People who were willing to fight the monsters even when the odds seemed impossible. "Rodriguez," I said, "can I ask you something?" "Sure." "That grenade, did you really take it from one of the guards?" He looked embarrassed. "Number, it was a training grenade from my army days. I keep it in my car as a paperweight." "So it wouldn't have actually exploded?" "Hell no. But they didn't know that." I started laughing. After everything we'd been through, after all the horror and fear and violence, Rodriguez had saved our lives with a dummy grenade. That's the stupidest, most brilliant thing I've ever heard. "Hey, it worked, didn't it?" Agent Chen approached us as we were preparing to leave. "Officers, there's one more thing you should know." "What's that?" We found evidence that Dr. Morrison's network was planning to expand. They were looking at other abandoned facilities, other cities where they could set up similar operations. "How many more?" I asked. "We're not sure. But this investigation is far from over." As Rodriguez and I drove away from what remained of the Riverside Medical Center, I thought about all the other abandoned hospitals out there, all the other places where people like Dr. Morrison could hide their crimes behind the facade of medical research. How many more facilities were operating right now? How many more victims were lying on operating tables, waiting to be dismembered for spare parts? I turned on my radio and listened to the normal chatter of police work. Traffic stops, domestic calls, minor incidents that made up the routine of law enforcement. It all seemed so innocent compared to what we'd just experienced. But I knew that somewhere out there, in another abandoned building in another city, someone else was probably getting a call about suspicious activity. And I wondered if they'd be as lucky as we were. The recorder stops, and I sit back in my chair. It's almost dawn now, and I haven't slept at all. But I had to get this down, had to record what really happened at Riverside Medical Center. Because Agent Chen was right, the investigation is far from over, and sometimes, late at night when I'm driving alone, I think I can still smell that antiseptic. Sweet and wrong. How many more Dr. Morrisons are out there? I flick the recorder on before I even touch the door handle. It's 11:15, and the Lockwood County Cruiser's headlights barely reach past the weed-choked driveway of the old Mercy Ridge Clinic. When I push off the door, my palm slides on the damp wood of the frame, mold's already eating at the paint. I catch my breath and say into the little silver mic, "Daniels, Mercy Ridge Clinic. Looks like it's been here since Nixon." Inside, the smell hits me immediately. Old antiseptic mixed with rot. I switch on my flashlight and ease through the lobby where faded mottled tiles crunch under my boots. Waiting room chairs lie overturned, upholstery torn. A bulletin board still lists summer activities for the clinic's senior day program, dated 1997. I pause by the broken glass of the nurse's window, where I imagine the staff would sit, fielding calls from anxious families. Now, it's only my own voice echoing back. I whisper, "You're all alone in here," as if someone might answer. I sweep the beam down the hallway. At the far end, double doors with peeling red paint read, "Emergency." They hang crooked on their hinges. My gut tells me to wait for backup. 2 patrol cars already called for by dispatch, but I know how long that takes. More time for whatever prowls, this place to slip away. So I step forward, flashlight and service pistol drawn, every instinct on edge. They told me to forget Mercy Ridge after it closed. They locked it, capped the furnace, boarded the windows, called it quits. But calls kept coming. Strange lights hollering in the corridors. A radio report of someone inside even after security sweeps. "Kids," they said, "drug-addled punks." But the calls never stopped. A janitor reported hearing wheeled footsteps at 3 a.m., but there was nothing on camera. My partner laughed it off, said, "Daniels, you chasing ghosts?" But I'm here, so apparently I believe there's something worth chasing. I reach the emergency doors and push. They creak open, and cold air rushes past me like exhaled breath. I jump back, thought someone slammed a freezer. Only the dark industrial hallway ahead. Overhead lights flicker, nest of wiring dangling from one fixture. I step in, every sense alert. My flashlight plays across a smashed gurney, mattress tattered, springs exposed. A clipboard taped to its side reads Room 12. I pocket it. Might be evidence, might be nothing. Best not leave anything behind. At the wing's far end is the nurse's station. Chart carts are still parked where they left, clipboards nailed down, labels staring me in the face. Admit, transfer, discharge. My breathing quickens when I see one cart has a fresh file slipped under the discharge clip, a single sheet of paper typed last week. I swipe it up, read the name, Patient 323045. No name, no date of birth, just a note scribbled in pen. Returning soon. I radio dispatch. Daniels to dispatch, I found a file dated last week. Instructions unclear. I need status, over. Nothing but static. I tap the microphone. Dispatch, do you copy? Static again. The station's radio must be dead. I curse under my breath. Old buildings kill electronics. Typical. I round the corner toward the psych wing. Door tags list room numbers, 101 through 110. I start with 101. My light catches half the glass panel embedded in the wood. I press my eye to it. Inside, 4 walls lined with padded paneling, floor scuffed, safety mattress torn. I kick the door gently. It moves, but stays latched. I radio for a key, realizing halfway that there's no one here to answer. I slip a screwdriver from my belt and jimmy the latch. Door swings in with a hollow thud. My heart hammers as I step inside. The only sound is my own breathing. I spin in a slow circle. Corners are dark pockets. My flashlight skims the walls. Here, a handprint dark with grime. There, small scratches in the padding, like someone tried to claw their way out. I swallow. No signs of a body, but the room feels fresh, unsettled. I pull out that discharge file and pretend it belongs here. Returning soon. Who writes that when the clinic's been shut for years? I hear a scrape behind me, soft, deliberate. I whirl, gun raised, nothing. just the door fidgeting on its hinges. My light falls on the latch I broke. It swings open wider. I take a step back. "Who's here?" I say, voice steadier than I feel. No answer. I scan the wall and realize the panel opposite me is shifted at an angle. A slot visible between wall and padding. Somebody must have dug it loose recently. I reach out, painfully aware of every sound I make, and pry it off. Behind it is a shallow cavity carved into brick. Inside sits a tape recorder. Looks like the same model I use, and it's blinking red, recording. I stare until I realize I'm holding my breath, then toss my jacket over it to kill the light. My spine tingles. I imagine someone crouched here listening, waiting to know when I'd show. I step back, light aimed at the corridor. The beam trembles, catches a figure at the end, tall, hunched, back to me. Thick coat, arms hanging loose. I clear my throat, the figure doesn't move. Then the shoulders shift like a breath, and it melts into the shadows of the hall. My jaw clenches. I want to run after it, cuff it, ask it what it's doing in here. But something stops me. An instinct whispered from years of patrol. You come in alone, you stay vigilant, you don't chase the shadows. I train my light on the door to room 102. The paint's flaking, but the handle is polished smooth, too smooth for somewhere abandoned. I knock once, twice. Nothing. I jangle the handle, it turns, I ease in. Immediate wave of cold, like someone opened a freezer door. My light skids over a cot with sheets folded neatly, too neatly, and a basin of water on a nightstand filled halfway, its surface perfectly still. No dust. I run a fingertip under the sheet's hem, warm. I swallow, adrenaline spiking. I step closer, hand hovering over my gun. The basin wobbles, then settles. That's not physics. I take a breath and say, "If you're here to hurt someone, you're too late." My words echo. No answer. I try the radio again. Silence. I try my phone. Still no bars. I back out of the room, mind racing. A tiny scrap of paper flutters on the floor, typed strip reading. "Sorry, I missed dinner." No signature. The words hurt more than I expect. Whoever writes notes in taped-off wings must be waiting for someone, or believing someone will come back. I step into the hall. The figure is gone. My light catches on a puddle of water that wasn't there before. One step past the door, shaped like a smear. I shine it around, drops trail down to a broken window at the corridor's end. I approach, mind screaming that this is wrong. Backup is minimum 2 officers. Protocol says stay out alone. But I'm here and it's too late to turn back. I lean over the puddle, flashlight in one hand, gun in the other. My reflection is warped, dancing in the ripples. And then, a whisper, "I'm waiting." No accent, no hiss, just the words right behind me. I spin so fast, breathing shallow, but there's nobody. The hallway behind me is empty. I turn back to the puddle. In the center, a single footprint. Bare, small, as if someone knelt to say something. The water drains away, leaving nothing but a dark ring on the floor. I tighten my grip on the gun and pocket the scrap of paper. I climb back through the lobby and pause under the broken fluorescent light. I tell myself I'll radio dispatch once I'm outside, once I'm near my cruiser, once I explain what I found. But I know they'll chalk it up to trespassers. They'll file it under vandalism or prank. So I keep the recorder running. I edge toward the front doors and whisper to it, "I know you're here, and I'm not leaving until I know who." A distant clang sounds behind me. A metal tray falling, or maybe the shutter to the X-ray room dropping shut. I don't turn around. I step into the night, door slamming behind me, and the lock clicks into place, sealing the silence. I stand there in the cold glow of my cruiser's headlights, and I say, Section 1, end. But I know the worst is still inside, watching. I slip into the driver's seat and close the door with a soft click, leaving Mercy Ridge's broken glass and yellowed walls behind me. For a second, I grip the wheel and just breathe. Cold night air snaking through my uniform, heart still hammering. Then I pop the recorder open again and click it on. Section 2, I say, voice rough. I thought hiding in the psych wing meant no one was home, but someone's been living here, and they're waiting for me. I reach beside my seat for a flashlight and radio, and both are dead. No surprise. Old wiring, damp floors, the building eats electronics. So I switch off the interior light and step out, circling to the passenger side where I keep my spare batteries and backup radio. My boots crush gravel as I rummage in the kit bag. I find 3 AA batteries, enough to power the recorder, at least. But when I lift the bag, I also feel more weight. That file I pried from the chart cart, the one stamped discharge last week. I secure it in my vest. Whoever signed off on that discharge file has been inside here recently, maybe every night. Back at the front doors, I set the flashlight on the ground and unsling my bag. I yank the chained handles apart and slip the chain off one side, then the other. The heavy links clatter on the tiles, stirring up a smell like rust mixed with mildew. I press my ear to the frame. Silence. No footsteps, no whispering through the vents. Only the distant hum of my cruiser's engine parked out front. I step inside again, softer this time, mindful of every floorboard. The waiting room is a tomb. Overturned chairs catch my foot as I pass. I shine my light on the far wall where peeling posters for arthritis support groups still cling in yellowed corners. A single page flutters down and skitters across the tiles. I don't look back to see where it lands. I just keep moving, head bent low, light pointed ahead, ready for anything. I retrace my steps to the lobby desk where I found that scrapped note. Sorry, I missed dinner. Whoever wrote that must still be here. I scoop up whatever stray papers are on the counter. Nothing but old magazines and hospital pamphlets. But when I glance at the pen lying there, cap off, ink wet, I suck in a breath. The tip is red. Blood? Maybe, but no drop smears on the brochures. It's easier to think it's spilled coffee or rusted ink, but my gut says otherwise. I step into the corridor that leads deeper into the clinic's interior. This time, I keep the recorder low, more for me than anyone who might hear it later. They're good at hiding, I whisper. I need to find where they sleep, or what they want. My beam cuts through darkness toward the nurse's station where I'd seen that fresh discharge file. The cart is still there, but now the clip is empty. Someone pulled the file back out, maybe after I left the first time. Whoever it is watching me. I round the corner to the psych wing's entrance. The tag for therapy room 3 dangles loose, swinging just enough to catch the beam. Room 2 behind it, I remember, was where the cot lay with the water basin. Water that felt too fresh, room too neat. The figure I saw fled down that hall. I need to follow. I take 3 steps in, then stop. The floor here is stained dark in irregular patterns, like water that soaked through to the concrete. The baseboards are rotted away. I wave the flashlight at them. There's a small door, barely visible, set low in the wall, big enough for a pair of boots to slip through. I kneel down, mark the spot in my mind. Crawl space, maybe. I tuck the recorder into my pocket and strip off my coat to avoid snagging it. I push open the door with a creak, and it gives way to a narrow tunnel lined with old wiring, insulation hanging like cobwebs. I slide in feet first. My gun is hooked to my belt, flashlight in my right hand. The tunnel smells of mold and something faintly coppery, blood, or maybe the building's pipes. I inch forward, every muscle twitching. The metal walls press close on either side, and I hear crack, crack, something shifting above me. I freeze, my ear presses against the cold steel. There's a scrape, deep and deliberate, like fingernails drawing along metal. Then a low thud, like something heavy being set down. My heart hammers so loud I swear it drowns out everything else. Light seeps in from a grate ahead. I crawl toward it and see a barred window set high in a laundry chute. Beyond it, I can see the faint glow of a hallway, an intersection where the main psych corridor crosses the inpatient wing. If I can reach that grate, I can climb up, hole punching into the hallway. But the bars are locked, thick iron. No simple pry would open them. I reverse a few inches, dragging my flashlight back. That's when I notice footprints in the dust along the bottom of the tunnel. Bare, small, dragging, like someone knelt and scooted. They lead back toward the broken panel I found earlier. They end in a smear of something dark and wet, right where the panel was pried off. I look back at the panel's spot and realize, when I cocooned that recorder with my jacket, I might have sealed them in. They know I'm here. I stand, squeezing my shoulders to pop them back. The roof of the tunnel grazes my hair. I feel the weight of the ceiling boards above. I press my back to the wall and whisper, "If you want me to find you, you're doing a good job." I wait. No response. But I hear breathing, slow, measured, as if someone is synchronizing their breath to the hiss of my light. I turn toward the grate again and make a decision. I'm not leaving until I know who's been living here. I shift the flashlight to my left hand, pull out my multi-tool with the other, and start working on the bars. The metal bit catches a groove. I wedge it in and torque. The metal complains, a high-pitched squeal against the tool. Every second I expect someone to come running, gun drawn, maybe scream at me. But it stays silent, everything pregnant with tension. I leverage the multi-tool against the bar, inch by inch, twisting until it shifts. There's a metallic crack and a bar loosens. My heart pounds in relief. I twist again, and the second bar snaps free. I push the grate inward. It clangs against the tunnel wall. I crawl up into the narrow hallway, gasping for air, gun and flashlight first. I hear the grate slam and lock itself behind me. Good. No one can follow quickly. I'm in the hall just outside room 103, once the day room for patients deemed in remission. I remember cameras posted high in the corners. Now, the lenses are shattered. The pastel walls have dark streaks where someone dragged their hands down. I step forward, light skimming the walls until I land on a pile of clothing. Men's trousers, a torn lab coat, slippers. Fresh footprints surround it. I glance down, wet marks where the clothes were moved aside. Someone slept here in this hall. My knuckles ache from prying the bars. I stand and slip the multi-tool back into my pocket. My flask of coffee, sipped cold now, stirs adrenaline in my veins. I lean against the wall across from the clothing and focus. Somebody wants me to come through here, maybe to talk, maybe to hunt me. I take a breath and advance. I pass room 104, its windows covered in brown paper, one slit torn to reveal only darkness. 105's door hangs open. I shine my light inside. Empty chairs, a dry erase board still scrawled with a patient's coping strategies. Counting backwards from 100, it reads, "Deep breaths." Next to it, footprints on the dusty floor, bare, small, identical to those in the crawlspace. I listen for any sound, but only hear the echo of my own boots. I clear my throat and say, "I found your bed. I know you're here, and I can't leave until we talk." My words vanish into the stale air. I press forward to room 106. the last known spot. I watched someone duck inside there before I slipped out earlier. My light catches on the door's edge. Fresh wood splintered off where someone forced it. I lift my flashlight to the knuckle of my gun and push in. The door swings in slowly. Inside, a low hum fills the room. My beam lands on a trolley of medical supplies. Syringes, vials, IV bags half full. None look months old. They're pristine. I spot a table with surgical scrubs neatly folded, blood-splattered gloves resting on top. My stomach tightens. Everything here feels ready for use. I step in, gun raised, light sweeping every corner. The hum grows louder. A mechanical radiator or fan hidden behind a panel. I'm about to back out when I see the shadow on the far wall, a tall shape hunched over something that glints under the beam. I shout, "Show yourself!" My voice cracks. The shape straightens. A man steps into the light, face half hidden by dark stubble. His eyes glint, a mixture of fear and relief. He holds out a hand, trembling. "You came," he says softly. I lower my gun, but keep my finger on the trigger. "Who are you?" I manage. He swallows hard, like he's been talking to himself for days. The hum pauses, then continues, louder. He looks around ceremoniously as if showing me his home. "I'm sorry," he says. "I had to stay. They said you'd come." His voice trails off like he's talking under anesthesia. I step closer, every instinct screaming that this is wrong. But I can't leave. I press record and whisper, "Keep talking." He nods and exhales. Behind him, a panel slides open to reveal a small window into the laundry chute tunnel, the bars missing where I pried them free. He steps back, closing the panel with a click. "You found my way in," he says. "Come on, I have to show you something." I shine my flashlight on his hand and see a key card. It bears Mercy Ridge's emblem, faded. "This opens the records room," he says. "I need you to see what I saw." My breath catches. The file in my vest, the whispers, the missing reports. I clutch the recorder tighter. An officer's duty says I should cuff him and call backup. But there's something in his eyes, something I've been chasing my whole career. A terror not manufactured by trespassers or drug addicts, but something seeded here long ago. I say into the recorder, "All right, I'm going with you." He nods. We step toward the records room door at the end of the hall, its lock clicking open at his swipe. Then he stops, turns to me and leans in close. His voice is a breath. "Don't trust the files." He pulls the door open. Inside, half the cabinets are emptied, drawers pulled. The remaining folders are stacked in a corner. Patient files, therapy logs, discharge notes. All stamped with dates decades old, except one, laid atop the pile, dated last night. He points at it, and I step forward, flashlight trembling. "This one." The door behind us creaks shut, and the soft click of a lock echoes. I raise my gun. He holds up both hands and looks at me like I've betrayed him. I step closer to read the date. It's July 7th, 2025. Last night. My eyes flick to his face. He swallows, and I realize someone filed this report after I left. I whisper, "Who else is in here?" He doesn't answer. The lights flicker, then they go out, plunging us into darkness. I flick the flashlight. It comes on, but it catches him in half shadow, the grin stretched too wide on his face. He tilts his head and smiles. "They're watching," he says. And in that moment, I know I'm never leaving this place without that answer. I hit the record button and exhale like I've been holding my breath for days. Mercy Ridge's records room is a tomb of paper, cabinets yawning open, strips of labels flapping in the cold breeze sneaking through broken vents. The only light comes from my flashlight, dancing across files tagged with decades-old dates. But that one file, dated yesterday, sits like a wound on top of the pile. I sweep it into my jacket pocket and say, "We need to know what's in there." He doesn't move at first. The man, he still hasn't given me a name, stares at the cabinets like they've wronged him. His eyes catch the gleam of metal on a half-empty cart. Stapler, hole punch, metal clips waiting for papers. He picks up the stapler, turns it in his hand, then sets it down like it's a weapon. I realize he thinks it is. "This wing," he rasps, voice breaking. "They used to gas us." He shudders, as if the walls themselves remember. I swallow and ask, "Gas? Where?" He points to the far wall behind the last row of cabinets. I step between the steel frames, flashlight beam skimming over bare concrete. In the corner, covered by a ragged tarp, is an old ventilation grate, rusted and pitted. He crouches low and sweeps the tarp aside. The grate's slats are bent inward. My flashlight catches condensation inside, dripping. He presses his ear to it. I do the same. At first, nothing but the hiss of the building's chill air. Then, soft, agonized breathing. I pull back sharply and draw my gun. No sound comes from outside the grate, but the echo of that breath lingers, like a ghost of someone exhaled decades ago. I turn to him. He's pale, eyes wide. "When the clinic closed, they left people behind," he whispers. I grip the barrel of my gun tighter and say, "Tell me who you are." He swallows, as if deciding whether to risk the truth. "Joseph," he says finally. "Joseph Weller." I nod, trying to keep my voice steady. "Weller, you said they gas—" He cuts me off. "Not gas, sedative mix, lipid-based aerosol, used during restraints. The ventilation would carry it back to the cell block. Some days they'd seal the wing and dose the patients without warning." His hands tremble. "They tested it on us, thought they could control behavior." My heart thunders. "Is that why you're here? To prove it?" He stares down at the tarp. I'm here because I can't leave my people behind." He spreads his arms wide. "They're still here." I meet his gaze. "Who else?" He hesitates. "They're gone now. They drifted, but their records stayed, and the files. They're alive. They change." I frown. "Change how?" He steps toward a cabinet full of discharge summaries. He taps the drawer. "I had a file here, paperwork, proving my release. It said I stepped out the doors 20 years ago. But every morning, I'd find it rewritten. My signature dated last week. They'd added notes: patient incomplete, return for follow-up, observe for auditory hallucinations." He laughs, low and brittle, like I was still a patient, like they never meant to let me go. I swallow hard. "So you came back?" He shrugs. "I had nowhere else." A distant clatter makes us both jump. I spin, light aimed at the open doorway, but the hall is empty. We exchange a glance heavier than any words. I say into the recorder, "Joseph Weller says patient files rewrite themselves." He thinks the clinic. I pause, choose my words. "The clinic wants them back." Joseph points at the wall behind the cabinets where a door frame is faintly outlined. It's the shape of a door, but no door remains. Just a thick slab of cement patched in. I've walked this hallway twice now and never noticed. I crouch, run my finger along the seam. Fresh masonry, too smooth. I press my palm to it. Cold, but not the same cold as the air. There's warmth beneath, a pulse. I radio dispatch again, voice low. No response. The cameras are out, my backup is hours away, and I'm in a building that breathes, that records, that holds, that wants. I tell Joseph, "Stay here." I step back and clear my throat. I'm going to check it. I crouch and press my shoulder against the wall. It shifts a fraction, just enough that I feel the give of hollow space behind it. Someone built this wall tight to conceal an office or cell block. I find a corner and set my flashlight on the floor, then touch my gun to my shoulder and push. The slab cracks soundlessly, like splitting flesh. My shoulder slides through a gap. I pry further, hands slick with sweat, until I can slip through. On the other side is a small room, maybe 6 by 8 feet, lit by a single bare bulb hanging from a frayed wire. The walls are tiled once, then half mended with concrete. I step inside and swing the flashlight. The beam lands on a rusted gurney against one wall, its wheels welded to the floor. Next to it, a surgical lamp droops, missing its bulb. The floor is stained dark, old blood, old rot, old secrets. My stomach twists. This room never made it onto any floor plan I've seen. It's hidden, undocumented. I grab the recorder where Joseph left it running and hold it up. "Recording," I whisper to the empty room. "I'm alone in your hidden chamber." Nothing responds, only the hum of the light. I circle the gurney, noting footprints in the dust. Right shoe, left shoe, alternating, leading to the corner by the door. I direct my beam there. On the wall is a small plaque. Mercy Ridge Clinic, Sedation and Containment Unit, Room 13. Underneath, letters etched, "Property of Dr. Hawthorne." I snap a photo on my phone. Still no signal, but it'll timestamp later. I pull back and my light catches something under the gurney. A vial with faded label. Pentothal. Sodium thiopental, truth serum, or lethal dose. I scoop it up, examine the glass. It's intact. Sediment at the bottom. I smell it. Faint chemical bite. Oily. I slip it into a Ziploc from my kit and stuff it in my vest. Evidence. Proof. Something tangible. Then the grate over the vent above me scrapes open. I look up. Darkness. But I hear that breath again. Shallow. I get to my feet, heart slamming, and grab my flashlight firmly. I step toward the vent. My light rakes inside. No bars this time, just loosened slats. Someone's come through here. My beam catches a shadowed shape at the far end of the grate, beyond the tiles. I can't make it out. Tall, hunched, back turned. I call out, "I know you're there." But my voice echoes back warped. There's no reply, only that breath and the faint drip of condensation. I consider following, climbing back into the tunnel, but I realize the strength to pry that grate came because it was never fixed. Whoever's here left it unlocked. They want me to find it. I spin to leave and almost run into Joseph in the doorway. He stands there, breathing hard, flashlight aimed at me. The recorder swings between us. He blinks and says, "I was afraid they'd get you." I shake my head, chest tight. "What do they want?" He wipes sweat from his brow. "They want someone to remember, someone who can testify." I say, "Testify? To what?" He looks away toward the vent grate. "To Mercy Ridge's sins." My mind races, trials, lawsuits, media firestorm. But Mercy Ridge is gone, bulldozed, razed to the ground weeks ago, no walls left, no files, nothing but a vacant lot. Yet here I am, inside its bones. Joseph steps into the room, closes the gap behind the tile slab and presses his hand to the wall. The seams close again. He pulls me in. "We need to finish," he says, voice urgent. "Follow me." I hesitate. Protocol screams not to wander deeper. But this recording, this evidence, I need to know. I nod. He leads me back through the secret room and down a narrow service corridor I didn't see before. Pipes lining the ceiling, the smell sour. We pass a door marked mechanical. He slides a key card that glints in the torchlight. The door swings open to reveal a stairwell spiraling down. He motions. Basement. I press record again. Section 3 end, basement next. I clamp the recorder off and shoulder my flashlight. We step into the stairwell together, footsteps echoing, anticipation dragging me down. And somewhere behind us, the record's room door seals itself. Paper files trembling in the draft, as if exhaling their last breath. The metal stairs groan under my weight as we spiral down into the clinic's guts. The air grows warmer, damp, thick with the scent of oil and old blood. My flashlight beam dances on pipes crusted with rust, on low-hung beams that force me to hunch. I can hear Joseph breathing beside me, short, ragged inhales, like he's fighting back panic. I press the recorder button again, half hoping it'll catch a whisper from the walls. At the bottom, the stairwell opens onto a cavernous basement. A single bulb swings on a long chain, casting a pool of jaundiced light that barely reaches the far corners. Concrete pillars stand like sentinels, their surfaces mottled with mildew and graffiti scrawled in red. They watch. My beam flicks over it, and I feel my chest tighten. Whoever was here after closing felt compelled to leave warnings. We step into the open space. Boiler pipes coil overhead, dripping water onto rusted grates. In the center sits a row of steel tables. Morgue slabs, I realize, their cold metal stained and pitted. Each slab has a tag holder at its end. Some still hold paper tags yellowed with age. On one, I read Jane Doe number 12, ink blurred. On another, patient 323045, discharged. My heart leaps. That's Joseph's file number. I shine my light on it. Date stamped 1983. But we know he was never really discharged. I glance at Joseph. His eyes are dark rings. He looks decades older. He whispers, "They never moved them." He steps onto the table and sweeps tags off the next slab. Underneath is nothing, just cold steel. He peels back a sheet draped there, but it's empty. His voice trembles. They thought if they left us here, they could forget us. Something skitters at the edge of my light, an object rolling across the floor. I drop to one knee and pick up a vial. Clear glass, broken seal, liquid gone. On the label, in jagged handwriting, for memory. My stomach twists. I slip it into my pocket without looking up. Joseph leads me deeper, past the morgue tables, toward a doorway marked Archives, letters half chipped away. He swipes the key card and pushes it open. Inside is shelving packed with metal canisters, old X-ray film reels, microfilm cylinders, projector spools. I run my hand across the labels. Patient histories, discharge summaries, therapy sessions, autopsies. Most spines are empty, ripped off, or melted. One canister sits intact, labeled Mercy Ridge Closure, Audio. He lifts it with reverence and pops it open. Inside is a reel-to-reel tape, its plastic casing warped. He slides it into an old player tucked on a nearby desk, and with a clunk, it spins. Static crackles. Then a male voice softly singing a lullaby, distorted but recognizable. The same lullaby that was written on the walls upstairs. I watch Joseph's jaw work. He leans in, halfway nodding, halfway listening. The tape clicks off, plunging the room into mechanical silence. Then Joseph says, "They recorded us." His eyes flick to the console's meters. The needle bounces ever so slightly, as if tracking a heartbeat. Every session, every reaction, they kept it. I swallow. Why keep it? He shrugs, voice hollow. To study us. To dissect every fear, every tear. They knew it wouldn't end when the clinic did. I shine my flashlight on a second desk piled with patient letters, envelopes stained and yellowed. I lift one, address still legible. To my daughter, forgive me. Inside is a torn photo. a woman in a nurse's uniform holding a child. On the back, scrawled, "I'm sorry I left you." I feel bile rise. Joseph clears his throat. They forced good people to see monsters in the walls. He steps past me to a filing cabinet. It groans open, revealing folders stacked haphazardly. He pulls one out, opens it. Inside is a photograph of me, taken weeks ago, standing at the front gates of Mercy Ridge. I blink. I've never seen this photo. My uniform, my face, even the date stamp matches my last day on patrol here. I flick off my flashlight, heart hammering, and swivel slowly so each of my senses screams in alarm. The beam catches movement behind another pillar. 3 figures step into view, men and women in faded uniforms, eyes empty, bodies thin. Their mouths move in silent arcs. When I snap the light on full, they vanish. I lean forward, blinking. The room is empty. Joseph grips my arm. "They remember you," he whispers. "They need someone to tell their story." I grip the recorder. The voice in my ear is my own, quiet but urgent. "They need someone." I trail off. I want to argue, point at logic, protocol, deadlines. Instead, I lock eyes on Joseph. His face is illuminated by the yellow bulb, streaked with tears I hadn't noticed. A sudden rumble shakes the floor, like the boiler firing up after decades. Pipes groan and bang. The basement lights flicker, then go dead, leaving us in a pitch so black I can't see my own hands. I call out, voice taut, "Joseph?" Only my breath answers. Then a single emergency lamp sputters on, a red glow swinging from a chain. It swings until it faces us. In its light, the shelves behind us lean forward, as if bowing. One of the metal canisters slides off, clattering to the floor and spinning toward the grate beneath the door. I don't move. Joseph steps back, gaze locked on the canister. I follow his eyes. The label reads, "Therapy Sessions. Subject, Mercy Ridge Staff." My blood runs cold. A distant clang echoes from the hall outside, followed by the creak of hinges. The archives door, sealed moments ago, cracks open on its own. Pale light spills in. I step forward, gun raised, heart slamming against my ribs. Joseph lunges beside me. We peer into the hallway, nothing but empty shelves silhouetted. I lean out and whisper, "We need to leave." But Joseph's hand clamps my shoulder. His voice is urgent. "Not yet. We have one more file." He waves the recorder at me, breath rasped. "Will you bear witness?" I hesitate, torn between fear and duty. The lamp flickers, and I catch a glimpse of movement in the corner of my eye. Shadows pooling, twisting like smoke. The canister stops spinning, upright on the grate, as if waiting. I swallow, voice cracking. All right. In that moment, the red lamp plunges the room into darkness again. I feel Joseph's hand slip into mine, gripping tight. Then the lamp clicks back on, but its bulb is dead. The archives are black. The tapes hum the only sound. And I know I'm standing at the edge of something I can't outrun. Somewhere in the dark, something breathes. I turn back toward Joseph, squinting in the dark, trying to pull my flashlight from my pocket. It's gone dead, battery spent on the grate. I tap the side of it, but nothing. My gun is the only thing in my hand with weight. I slip the Ziploc vial from my vest and hold it between us, the label ghostly in my palm's pale glow. Pentothal, truth serum or poison. I don't know which, but I feel the pull of its promise, the courage to face what comes next, or oblivion. Joseph nods, pale light in his eyes. Together, we step toward the fallen canister. I crouch and pick it up. The metal is cold, heavier than I expect. I twist the lid. It squeals, but the reel inside is free. I carry it over to the desk where the ancient tape player sits, the one that sang that lullaby. I slot the reel in place and pull the lever. The tape whirs, crackles, then silence. My breath catches. I reach over and depress the play button. At first, nothing but static. Then a voice. Low, a man's voice reading a list of names. It's methodical, detached. Subject 1042, agitation noted. Subject 1043, insomnia, medicate. Subject 323045, irregular heart rate, potential complication. Subject 267890, compliance response positive. The voice continues like a cold reader of inventory. I glance at Joseph. His face is empty, eyes fixed on the tape machine. He mouths, "That's me." The tape shifts to a new tone. Pages flipping, the clerk fumbling. Then, muffled shouting. I realize the tape is recorded in stereo. One track the clerk, the other an unseen subject screaming. The shriek rises and cuts off suddenly. A wet slap rings out, like flesh striking gurney. My shoulder stings. I flinch, nearly shooting Joseph in surprise. He trembles next to me, as if grounded by that sound. I press stop, and the hiss of the machine echoes in my ears, replaced by dripping water from overhead pipes. I snap the machine off and slip its plug from the wall. The reel goes into my pocket. Evidence. I can't lose it. We move deeper into the archives room's recesses, toward a narrow door half hidden by shelving. The peeling letters above read, "Patient records secure." Joseph fishes a second keycard from his pocket. It's worn, bent. He swipes it, and the door clicks open. Light spills through the crack. I advance, hand on Joseph's shoulder, feeling the tremor of his frame. The corridor beyond is bathed in faint amber light. Emergency bulbs untouched by dust. We step through. The corridor tilts downward, as if the archives are built into a subterranean ramp. The walls here are smooth concrete, sealed tight, no vents or windows. Along the wall, data terminals ring silent, screens dark, keyboards with keys missing. On the floor, cables snake into the darkness. I flash my gun light along them. Microfilm readers, printers, hard drives. A label on one drive reads, "Backup, Mercy Ridge Digital Logs." My fingers itch to pull it loose, but we press on. At the ramp's end is another heavy door with a small glass window. From inside comes a steady hum, like air passing through a filter. Joseph presses his ear to the glass. I step beside him. Inside, I can see rows of white tanks, cylindrical vats filled with murky fluid. Each has a tube at the top, feeding into a manifold overhead. I can't see what they hold, but the tanks glow faint green. Joseph steps back, breathing harsh. "Sedation prototypes," he whispers. "They couldn't test enough patients, so they kept us alive in the basement to calibrate the doses." His voice cracks. I look back at him, my chest tight, and realize he means the patients never left. Their bodies must be here, somewhere in the vats. I raise my gun, finger near the trigger, but point it at the tanks. I lean close to the window. My reflection blurs with the green glow. I hear a gurgle, low and wet, like someone struggling to breathe. I jump back and call out, "Joseph," but he's already prying open the door with his multi-tool. The lock bar rips loose. He yanks it open. The room smells like chemicals and rot. We slip inside. The floor is slick. My boots skid on a sheen of oil or water. I grip Joseph's arm and guide him forward. My beam dances across tanks, some labeled Subject 1042. Subject 1043, continuing the tape's sequence. Then I see it. Subject 323045, Joseph's tank. His pale reflection, distorted by curved glass, stares back at me. I swallow hard. The fluid inside is dark, viscous. I shine my light. Something floats near the surface. A white shape, bloated tissue, hair drifting like seaweed. Joseph gasps. The sound echoes. Then the hum intensifies like a machine feeding power. Overhead, a grated vent opens with a pneumatic hiss. A shaft of brighter light cuts across the room. I call out, "We need to go." But Joseph goes still, eyes fixed on the tank. He reaches forward and touches the glass. His fingers press against it, and water beads on his knuckles. He whispers, "They never stopped dosing, not when they sealed me inside." I feel a wet warmth on my leg and look down. The vial in my pocket has leaked. A single droplet glints on the floor. I lift it and see a crack across the glass. I shatter it against a pipe flange. The vial splits, liquid spurting. The drop hits the floor, hisses. I sigh, relief mixing with revulsion. I should have known. No truth serum, just corrosive acid. Proof the place corrodes everything it touches. Joseph jolts out of his daze. He turns to me, shaking. They shifted the tanks, moved them underground when the demolition started. I thought I could carry them out, but the tunnels collapsed. He gestures at the other vats. They're on tracks, like a conveyor. Each end leads into dark holes in the wall, tunnels sealing them off. They're shipping bodies out in the night, he rasps, to labs unknown. I try the door, locked from the outside. The lock tumbler clicks mockingly. I smack it with my fist. Nothing. Joseph slams his shoulder against it. Only a dent. We're trapped. A low rumble shakes the room. It's not just the machinery, it's the building. Contracting. Collapse? A secondary demolition? Or Mercy Ridge itself reacting to our presence? My oxygen constricts as I remember the pentothal. Could be fatal if inhaled, but if injected. I scan the room for a syringe. There's one on a tray next to a metal case. I pull it free, barrel intact. Joseph swipes it, wipes the needle clean on his sleeve. His eyes fill with tears again. I ask, "What are you doing?" He looks at me, voice steady. "Forgive me. I can't stay without proof." He holds the needle out. I swallow hard. He raises his sleeve. 4 faded scars across his forearm, remnants of every shot administered here. I reach out and grip his wrist. "You're alive. We'll get out," he hisses. "No." I need to record my confession in my own blood. They never let me speak. I have to show them I'm human. He presses the tip to his vein. I fight to pull him back. The machinery whines louder, lights flicker. A distant crash. Tanks shudder, rails shake. A wave of panic hits. I shove Joseph. "We leave now." He stumbles but keeps the syringe raised. The hiss of fluid entering his vein is loud in my ears. I grab him under the arms and drag him toward the door. He resists, eyes glazed. The lamp above us hums and cracks, showering sparks. I slam my shoulder into the door again. The lock pops. We tumble out into the corridor and the door slams behind us, sealing off those vats and all their horrors. We don't stop to catch breath. We run up the ramp, past the terminals and cables, feet slippery. The hum fades behind us. At the top, the secure door blocks our path. Joseph presses his hand to the scanner. It beeps twice, then relocks with a metallic thunk. "That's it," he pants. "We have to find another way." I scan the corridor. Nobody else in sight. The way we came, through the archives, is sealed. Behind the filing cabinet, the hidden door into the morgue room still exists, if I can pry it open again. I grip Joseph's arm. "That way." He nods, blood dropping from his sleeve onto the concrete. I pull him, his legs shaky. and we stumble toward the wall where I forced the slit in the tile. I crouch and push my shoulder against the cement with all I have. It budges an inch. I ram it again. The wall cracks. Pieces crumble into the archives behind. I shout for Joseph, "Help me!" He kneels and shoves alongside me. Together we tear the wall apart until a gap forms wide enough to slip through. We tumble into the bone-chilling archives, back among the canisters and reels. Joseph crawls toward the secret room door. I follow, my lungs burning from the exertion and the adrenaline. We slam through into the morgue basement, boots skidding on the slick floor. The morgue slabs stare back at us, empty. The hush of stillness is deafening. I find the ladder to the stairwell and pull Joseph up. He clings to the rungs, trembling. I follow, splinters biting my palms. At the top, we burst into the psych wing corridor. My gun light picks up a smear on the wall, brown streaks that glisten. I shine it down. Footprints of many sizes, like children running side by side. My throat closes. I shove Joseph toward the lobby. We burst through the front doors just as emergency lights flicker on across Mercy Ridge's facade. The city demolition crew's backup generators powering the raising machinery. A bulldozer's blade lights the parched grass in sickly yellow. I drag Joseph across the driveway. He collapses, finger tracing the vial of his tape, now cracked and leaking confessions onto the concrete. I kneel beside him as the demolition crew arrives, helmets glinting. I hold up my badge, voice loud. "Officer Daniels, step back. This area is off limits." They pause, bewildered. Joseph moans. I press the recorder into my jacket and say, "Section 4. End. Behind me, heavy machinery groans and rumbles toward Mercy Ridge's walls, ready to erase every last confession, every silent scream. And I wonder, how do you save what no one else believes existed? I keep my hand on Joseph's shoulder as the demolition crew hesitates 10 feet away, their floodlights painting him in harsh white. He's pale, shivering, the syringe still dangling from his arm. I glance back at Mercy Ridge, its boarded windows rattling in the wind, stirred by the heavy machinery. The building groans like it's waking up, not dying. I bend to Joseph's ear and say, "Hold on." Help is coming. His eyes flick open, damp, glazed. He presses the cracked vial of tape reels against my chest and rasps, "Promise me you'll finish this." I nod, voice thick. "I promise." I flip the small switch on the recorder in my pocket and hold it near his mouth. "Joseph Weller, tell me what I'm taking with me." He coughs, blood flecking his lips. He lifts a trembling hand to his throat. The truth. Not just what I saw, but what happened when I left, and what followed me back. He swallows hard, gaze fixed on a distant memory. I stepped out that day, walked past the gate, heard someone call my name over and over, echoed off the walls. I thought it was the wind. He catches himself, tears wet on his cheek. I was wrong. A distant beeping interrupts. The crew's safety alarm. They're clearing the zone. I glance at my watch. Past midnight. Backup should reach us any second. I press my free hand to Joseph's back. "You're going to make it." He shakes his head lolling. "It doesn't end at Mercy Ridge. It followed me home." His voice is faint now, but urgent. "Hear that?" I lean close. Nothing but distant machinery, the hum of police radios on my belt. He turns his head sharply, eyes on the dark tree line, beyond the parking lot. "Not outside," he says, voice hollow. "Inside." I mirror his gaze back at the clinic. The floodlights have shifted, illuminating an upper window, where the paperwork room used to be. I swear I see movement. A shadow crouched, watching. I lift my gun, aim. The shape dissolves as if it was never really there. I radio dispatch. "Daniels to dispatch. Do you copy?" I need emergency medical and mental health teams at Mercy Ridge. Patient status critical. Static. I slam the radio, then try my phone. No bars. Joseph grips my wrist, thumb digging into my skin. "It's in you now," he whispers. "Every place you go, the files, the voices, the hush behind your back, you carry it." He coughs, a gurgle, and I catch the edge of panic in me. I know he's right. Last night I dreamed of Mercy Ridge's hallways, doors clicking, vents breathing beneath my bed. I woke, unable to scream. The demolition crew withdraws behind barricades as a city ambulance's lights reflect on Joseph's eyes. The paramedics hurry over, flashlights bobbing. I kneel beside him as one checks his pulse and another readies a stretcher. Joseph's eyes drift closed, but his hand finds mine, squeezing. I press record again at my chest. "Section 5, I say softly. Joseph's in care. I have his statements, the tapes, the vial, the photos. I will bring every confession to light." A paramedic lifts Joseph gently. "Stay with me, bud," she murmurs. But his eyes flicker, lips forming words I can't hear. They load him in, and I stand as the ambulance doors close. I watch it pull away, red lights painting the clinic's facade. The building doesn't tremble or groan this time. It's still, patient waiting. I should follow. Hospital, then station, then interviews, but something stops me. An ache, a whisper in my gut. I'm not done here. I close the recorder and tuck it into my vest. Then I step toward the clinic, boots crunching gravel. One last look at the main entrance. Spray painted in black letters, someone's warning. "Don't let them bury the truth." I pull on the chain door again. It swung open in my first pass. Now it's locked solid, chain coiled tight. I jiggle it, nothing. I lean against the door and put my ear to the wood. I swear I hear breathing on the other side. Soft, satisfied. My heart hammers. I tap the door with my knuckles. "Joseph," I murmur. "Can you hear that?" No answer, just the hum of distant radios. I drop to one knee and set the recorder against the door. Click. I whisper into it. Daniel's confession. Liv from Mercy Ridge Clinic. They lock the doors, but the clinic never stops speaking. I stand and move around to the side of the building where I found the loose panel on day one. There's no gap now, cement sealed, paint weathered. I press my palm, cold, unyielding. I trace the outline in moss, memorize it. I pull out my phone again, signal bars flicker and die, I curse. A sudden wind rattles the clinic's windows. The floodlights flicker, illuminating the lobby through fractured glass. I see chairs overturned, posters peeling, and for a heartbeat, I glimpse someone standing in the shadows behind the nurse's window, someone tapping on the glass pane from the inside. I raise my flashlight, train it there, nothing. The silhouette is gone. I take a breath, try to steady my nerves. The police car's engine idles behind me, my cruiser left unlocked. Dispatch must have pinged on GPS. I walk around to it and climb in, door thudding. I insert the key and kill the engine's hum. I want to drive away, but can't. I need to preserve this place, record every echo before it's gone. I open the glove box. Inside is a stack of forms. Accident report number 57, trespasser citation number 12, vandalism notice number 21. All blank. I take them out, rip one in half, scatter pieces on the dash. The paper drifts in the breeze, swirling before settling on the windshield. A mosaic of confessions not yet written. I start the engine and pull forward. Headlights cutting across the clinic's facade one last time. The demolition crew waits, ready. I ease past them, no siren, no lights, just one patrol car slipping through the barricade. I park 50 yards away, kill the engine. I sit in darkness, recorder in my lap, chest tight. I open it and press play, my own voice. Daniels. Mercy Ridge Clinic. Looks like it's been here since Nixon. For a moment I listen, heartbeat syncing with that first whisper of curiosity. Then I stop it. I tape the device shut, slip it into my pocket. I step out and stand looking at Mercy Ridge, illuminated by bulldozer lights. In the echo of its silence, I swear I hear a door click. Then a footstep, soft, deliberate, just beyond the entrance. I whisper to no one but the night, "I'm coming back." I lift the recorder and click it on, the red light bleeding through the plastic. My voice comes out gravelly. Section 6. I pause, inhale, then lean forward. The engine's off, the demolition lights are quiet behind me, and Mercy Ridge stands silent, its skeleton laid bare. I step out of the cruiser, boots sinking into dew-damp grass, and walk toward the rubble-strewn lot where the clinic's wings once stood. Every plan I ever knew as an officer unraveled the moment I crossed that threshold. I learned Mercy Ridge isn't just walls and corridors, it's a gravity well for memory and madness. It devours evidence, rewrites files, traps the living in its pulse. And now, stripped of its concrete cage, it sits waiting for the next heartbeat. I walk among the rubble, careful not to trip on rebar or shards of tile. Piles of debris lean at odd angles, twisted steel beams, broken filing cabinets, stacks of patient charts half buried in dirt. I kneel and scoop up a handful of ash, paper turned dust. I bring it to my face. The scent, smoke, mold, something metallic. I exhale through my nose, tasting the ghost of every scream that ever echoed here. My phone buzzes in my pocket, backup at last. I ignore it. No one else can hear what Mercy Ridge is trying to say. I need to listen. I reach into my vest and pull out the crackling vial of tape reels. Joseph's last reel. I hold it like a relic. The label reads only "Closure Stream." I slip it into the breast pocket of my uniform. Cold metal pressed against my sternum. Evidence anchored to my chest. I stare at the widest pile of collapsed ceiling, once the grand atrium, now rubble. I kneel and clear aside concrete until I find a piece of tile, chipped green with streaks of red. I brush off the dust. Letters, faint but real, "Release me." Beneath that, a name scratched so deep it scarred the surface. E.B. I press my finger into the groove and feel it pulse. I whisper, "I'll find you." Behind me, my cruiser door squeaks open. First turn. Lieutenant Hardy steps out, silhouette outlined by his headlights. He squints at the lot. "Daniels?" he says, voice measured. "What the hell are you doing out here?" I tuck the tile into my pocket. "Listening." I hold up the recorder. I have confessions, tapes, files, testimony. Mercy Ridge can't die unspoken. He shrugs into his jacket. "City's already boarded the site. Plans to clear it tomorrow. You okay, man?" Concern in his eyes. He steps closer, and for a second I almost respond like a normal officer. But I can't. Not yet. I click record again, holding the device between us. "Lieutenant, tell them to postpone the demolition. I need one more night." He blinks. "We've got court orders." I cut him off. "They're forged. I have proof the files changed themselves, that people were used as test subjects, that Mercy Ridge hid its patients in vats while it planned its own erasure. I need evidence to stop them." He rubs his jaw, uncertain. The shadows shift behind us. Twisted rebar and broken beams cast skeletal forms. He glances upward. "I don't know, Daniels." I step forward and press the recorder into his hand. The red light glows in his palm. "Listen." He raises it to his ear. I wait. The air is so still I can hear the distant hum of the city. Then a soft hiss from the device. The spinner inside the vial. I point at it. That's the pentothal from the basement. The acid I found, it corrodes memory. Some of us already drank it in scraps. A drop here, a drip there. It's in the soil, the groundwater. His eyebrows knit. You're sure? I kept a sample, I say. Send it to the lab. I step back and sweep the beam across the lot. I want you to hear everything, Lieutenant. This tape, Joseph's confession. I need it broadcast, every news station, every courthouse. Mercy Ridge dies tomorrow unless they listen. He pockets the recorder, weighs it. Then he looks up at the gutted clinic, half-raised walls sloping like graves. He exhales. All right, I'll call it in, but you're coming back with me. We'll file the reports inside. I nod, relief and dread colliding. We start walking back toward the road. I pause at the pile of tile where EB slid from memory into ash. I dig it out and hold it to the sky. The floodlights behind me blaze on, slicing through the night. He's 2 steps ahead when I catch movement. A flicker at the edge of the whitened wall, where the outpatient wing's corridor once ran. I swivel, beam and heart racing. Nothing but twisted girders and toppled shelves. I step toward it, hand on my gun, every nerve alight with certainty I'm not alone. Something clicks behind me, like a camera shutter or a lock engaging. Lieutenant Hardy glances back. What is it? I point at the darkness. They're here. He follows my gaze. Who? I swallow. Everyone I left behind. The wind picks up, whisking ash and paper across the lot like spectral pages of a book torn open. I lean forward, clenching the tile. I whisper to the collapsing walls, the broken beams, the deep earth beneath. I hear you. And in that impossible stillness, the unfathomable machinery of Mercy Ridge exhales, sounding like a dozen doors sighing open at once. Lieutenant Hardy takes a hesitant step back. I look at him, my partner, the law, the reality I once believed in, and I realize none of it matters anymore. Because Mercy Ridge will never be quiet, not until someone listens. I set my jaw. I raise my recorder once more, voice low but clear. Final confession, I say. I will not forget Mercy Ridge. A single footstep echoes from the rubble, soft, deliberate, alone. First turn, and I'm not sure which one of us is more afraid. I hit record because I can't trust myself to remember all of this, and I'm not sure I'll sleep without saying it out loud. It was just past midnight when dispatch pinged me on the graveyard shift. A motion alarm at the old St. Mark's Clinic, the psychiatric annex that's been boarded up since 2007. Nothing on the logs about trespassers, but the alarms wired into the city grid, so it trickled through to our station. I told them I'd check it solo. No point waking up my partner if it was just kids. By the time I pulled into the lot, my headlights cut through thick fog, pooling at the roofline, and the chain-link fence looked like a dark silhouette against nothing. The gate was padlocked shut, but the lock was rusted, and it twisted open with a single jerk of the wrist. My boots crunched gravel as I walked up the ramp to the ambulance bay. Through the broken expanses of glass, I could see the bay floor littered with gurney wheels and smashed plastic trays. The flickering floodlight overhead gave just enough glow to make my pulse thud in my ears. I radioed in, Unit 12, inside the bay. No acknowledgement. I tapped the mic again. Nothing. It's usual to get a response even at this hour. The silence settled heavy, like a weight pressing against my chest. Inside, the air tasted metallic. I crouched by a stainless steel bench smeared with what looked like dried rust, but the sheen was too red. I swiped my glove across it. Old spackle and dirt, nothing alive. Still, my light caught streaks that almost looked like someone's fingernails. I shook it off. Mental trick. My reflection on the cracked tile wall was drawn and pale under the flashlight glare. I told myself this was another routine security check, but every instinct screamed that routine died here years ago. I pried open the service door marked "Authorized Personnel Only," the letters almost worn away. I stepped into the hall, and the beam of my flashlight scoured row after row of peeling paint and mold-spotted walls. The scent of mildew rotted in my nostrils. A single gurney sat in the center of the corridor, wheels locked, and I could hear it creak as if the building was moving it, though I was alone. I flicked the radio again. "Dispatch, do you copy?" Static. Then a soft crackle, like someone breathing. I spun to where the sound came from. Nothing but the gurney. Further down the hall, a double door swung inward on broken hinges. I paused at the threshold. The tiles inside were slick, glazed with moisture. Operating rooms by the look of it. Rusted surgical trays, an overturned stool, a deflated blood pressure cuff tangled around a ring of wires. One of the lights still hung from the ceiling, swinging just enough to cast moving shadows. I know better than to shine my light directly into it, but I raised it anyway, willing the shadows to show something human. Instead, I saw nothing. No bodies, no tools, just empty trays painted white with age. My foot nudged something on the floor. I knelt. A piece of paper, yellowed and curled at the edges, a name, Patient 4911. Underneath, the remark, "Transferred, unknown." No date, no signature. I stuffed it into my jacket pocket. A memory flickered. Old code for patients lost to the system. The ones nobody wanted to track when they fell off the grid. I swallowed. No good could come of this. A sudden buzz from the far end of the room made me freeze. My light swept to the entrance. The doors were ajar, and there was a glow beyond. Not a flashlight. A pale blue glow drifting like mist. I stood, my gun hand shook. I took 2 steps forward, my chest tight, each breath forced. The glow receded as I approached, vanishing around the corner. I radioed dispatch one more time, voice tight. "I'm in the OR wing, getting some weird readings." Silence. Only the echo of my words, bouncing off the tile. I followed the glow's path down the corridor, slower now, training the light on every seam in the wall, every broken panel. Footprints in dust, bare, small, like a child's, led across the hallway, then ended at a utility closet. The door was sealed shut, but the hinges were fresh, clean metal against the corroded frame. I tested the knob. It rattled, then spun. Inside were rows of unused stretchers, covered with white sheets soiled with age, and at the far end a single sheet lay on the floor, untouched by dust, as though someone had placed it there yesterday. I knelt and reached out, the fabric rough under my fingertips. I yanked, half expecting something to grab back. Nothing. The sheet slid free, and beneath it, tracks etched into the tile, drag marks leading back toward the elevator shaft. My light caught the elevator doors, slapped shut, no car inside, but the button was lit, pulsing. I raised my hand, hesitate or call it in. I hesitated. If I called it in, I'd have to stay long enough for backup, and whatever was here might slip away. I pressed the button. The doors groaned open, slow as a coffin lid. Darkness inside, no light, no cables, just the smell of damp concrete. I stepped in as the doors swished closed behind me. The floor indicator flashed 0 and 2 at the same time, flickered, then went blank. My stomach knotted. I snatched my phone out, no signal. I flicked the flashlight into the car, nothing but scratched walls and a single rusted railing. My breath echoed back at me. Then the floor shuddered, and the doors jolted, as though someone on the other side slammed them shut. Lights above hissed on, We were moving, down or up. I couldn't tell. My knees shook, and I gripped the railing, knuckles white. In the corner of the car, I saw a pair of shoes, black, scuffed leather boots. I spun, heart in my throat. No feet inside. My voice caught. "Who's there?" I pressed the button for the lobby, waited for the doors to open. They slid apart to reveal the main hallway again, but it was empty. No gurneys, no lights, just endless tile halls fading into darkness. I stumbled out, feeling the car drift silently back into the shaft behind me. I slammed the doors shut with my foot, checked the indicator, lobby. I exhaled, wiped sweat from my brow. My radio lit up, static, then a garbled voice. "Unit 12, return to station." I clicked off the mic, too rattled to respond. As I made my way back through the main hall, the floodlight outside snapped on, bright and steady. Relief and dread warred in my chest. I stepped out into the lot and headed for my cruiser, boots sloshing in a puddle that hadn't been there before. The water rippled, reflecting the clinic's broken sign, just slanted letters, too rusted to read, but the faint outline of the word saint. Marks lingered. I looked back once, expecting to see someone, or something, at the entrance. Nothing but darkness and the hum of the city beyond. I climbed into the car and shut the door. The engine roared, then idled. I stared at the rearview mirror. Dark glass, no gleam of a passenger. The seatbelt was buckled. I reached out, unclicked it, and when I looked back, the buckle was moving, twisting on its own, as though someone unseen was tightening it. I snapped the belt free, hands trembling, and peeled out of the lot. Tonight will go down as another false alarm, they'll say. But I've seen those footprints, and I know what's locked behind that closet door. I'll be back next week, and the gurney in the bay. I can't shake the feeling it'll be waiting. I didn't sleep for more than an hour after I left that lot. My partner found me at 0300, pacing by the drink machine in the break room, flashlight still in hand, uniform, stained with dust and something dark I can't name. He asked if I was okay. I said I was fine, just didn't want to be alone. He let it go. That was 3 nights ago. I've been back to St. Mark's every night since, always alone, always slipping in after midnight when the station's quiet and the streets are emptier than an empty promise. I don't know why I'm drawn back. Guilt, curiosity, some compulsion I can't shake. But each time I step into that building, I feel its walls watching me, waiting. I learned the old vent route first night. The vents in the supply closet off the main corridor. They're small, maybe a foot square openings, but I have my pliers and dust mask, and I squeeze through after popping a panel free. It's claustrophobic, the air foul with decades of mildew and something sweeter beneath, like rotting meat or sickly sweet medicine. I follow the duct until it turns. Then I drop silently through a tear in the ceiling tiles into what used to be the nurse station on the 2nd floor. The light's always off up here, panels ripped out, wires looping from the ceiling like dead vines. I crouch and sweep the beam across the nurse's chart, clipped to a board. Faded, names scratched, transferred. Expired. Codes I don't understand. I circle back to the gurney I found each night in that same spot. It's moved, sometimes facing the opposite direction, sometimes draped with hospital sheets that weren't there before. They're clean, starched white, as though someone still cares, but they smell like mildew. I've never found anyone hiding under them, just emptiness and broken wheels. Last night, I followed a smear of damp footprints, dark and glossy, down the hall toward the sealed utility closet. The rim of the door had fresh paint, gray over gray, but the locks were gone, hinges new. I pulled it open with my shoulder. Inside, the lights flickered on. White fluorescence I'd never seen active. The room looked more like a makeshift morgue. Stainless tables bolted to the floor, hooks overhead draped with frayed straps, and at the far wall a metal shelf lined with glass jars. My light skated across them. Each jar contained something suspended in murky liquid. Tissue samples? I couldn't tell. My stomach turned. I scanned for a document. None. Then I heard soft footfalls behind me. I whipped around. No one there. The door swung shut. I kicked it open, rolled out, pulling it closed behind me. I've tried radio calls. Dispatch hears me. Static, then my own voice echoing back, slower, dragging out words. Unit 12. I'm in. The closet. It makes me jump every time. I've demanded backup. They told me no other units are available until 0600. I've let them think I'm checking locks and alarms. That's all I've admitted. But in reports I file, digital logs vanish by morning. I file an incident report. Alarm triggered. False alarm. No suspects or hazards found. Tomorrow, I look back, nothing. The report's deleted. I can't access it. The station denies its existence. I'm supposed to forget. I can't. Tonight, I pressed further. At 01:25, I crept in through the front doors. The big, sliding glass ones they never tore out. The lots flooded from last week's rain, and my boots sent ripples across the puddles. Inside, the lobby smells like wet carpet and mold. Doors to the administrative wing are padlocked. I jimmy one and slip through. The walls here have peeling motivational posters. Healing happens here, and stained carpets twisted like tentacles. I found the stairwell to the basement, footing loose, handrail slick. Down 3 flights. The basement is a labyrinth of low ceilings, pipes, and break rooms long since stripped of furniture. I swept the light across a bulletin board with sheets listing staff schedules, but the dates are from 2006. No other papers pinned. I torn one free. Chuck Benson, LPN, shift 7 p.m. to 3 a.m. No phone number, no next of kin. Underneath, someone scrawled in biro. Did you see them? And an arrow pointing down the hallway. I followed it. The hall angled left into a bank of patient rooms. Doors are numbered, but no numbers correspond to the upper floors. I tried door 13, locked. The knob rattled as I turned it. Then from inside, a whisper, so quiet I caught it only because my ears were open. Officer. I froze. I radioed Steve. He texted back, "Be safe." That was all. I tapped the door, voice calm. "Police, you okay in there?" No answer. I pushed the door. It swung open to reveal a room with a single bed, thin mattress stained brown, sheets crusted and torn. Across the bed, a desk with a folded sheet of handwriting, a message in tidy script. "Thank you for coming." I flicked the light to the floor. Footprints, again small, raw, chalk white in dust, leading under the bed. I dropped to my knees, peered under. Nothing. No breathing, no shift of weight, nothing. But the air felt warmer down there, thick as wet wool. I felt a brush on my calf. I spun. No one. I swore I felt someone standing close. My heart hammered so loud it hurt. I shone the beam across the walls, scratch marks, deep gouges, as though someone had tried to claw through. The paint peeled in uneven clumps. My mind raced, patients desperate, doctors cruel, but none of it matched up. No files exist for room 13, no records. It's as if it never belonged. I reached out, touched the scratch marks, the pain flare, hot metal against my palm. Fresh rust oozed down. I jerked away, glove torn. I stared for long seconds. The scratches formed shapes. Letters? I turned the light. The dents spelled "run" if you tilted your head. I shook it off and backed out, floorboards groaning. I slammed the door. It stuck. I kicked it free, ran back down the hall, popping into the stairwell. I climbed 2 flights, pausing on each landing to listen. Nothing followed, nothing chased. But in my mind I can still feel the brush of breath on my ear and something rattling inside my jacket like the paper in my pocket shifting. I didn't dare look. Back in the ambulance bay, floodlight dead. I stood where the gurney should be, but there wasn't one. Only a dark stain on the concrete and the echo of wheels spinning. I swept my light outside, fog thick, empty auditoriums of darkness. I paced, unclipped the patient note in my pocket. 4911 transferred, unknown. I rifled through it. A sheet fell out, embossed hospital letterhead, dated 2003, typed, subject returned. Quarantine lifted. Escort not required. No signature. My mind buzzed. Who was subject 49-11? Why quarantine? Escort by whom? I crumpled the paper in my fist. My knuckles ached. I saw movement beyond the fence, a silhouette at the gate. I cursed, radioed dispatch, someone at the fence. No answer. I pointed my light, shape-hunched, rocking. Radio crackled, my voice. Unit 12, return to station. Static, then laughter. Software unmistakable. A child's laugh, echoing off the clinic walls. It wasn't sad or innocent. It felt warning, mocking. My breath caught. I tightened my grip on my flashlight as though it were a weapon. The figure darted behind the ambulance bay. I lunged for the tow light panel on my cruiser. Heart slamming, I wheeled around the car. Nothing but fog and concrete. The bay doors loomed, half open, as if welcoming me back inside. I stared. Every instinct said, go back, run the other way, call for real backup. But I don't know why, I felt compelled. I took 2 steps forward. Rain began to fall, light at first, then a downpour. Drops pattered on metal, on the pavement, on the unsteady ground between me and that doorway. My boots sank in mud. Each step forward was a defiance of better judgment. I reached the threshold. The lights inside the bay flickered on, one by one, illuminating rows of empty beds on wheels, all facing inward like spectators in a gallery of dread. I turned the beam across the entrance and saw claw marks gouged into the concrete wall. Fresh. I shone it higher. Footprints begin at eye level. Handprints, really, smeared with dirt, alternating left and right, as though somebody walked on their hands climbing up. They ended at the floodlight control panel, wires ripped out. I scanned the bay. Those same boots I saw in the elevator car stood lined against the far wall. No bodies in them, just boots, laces tied, tips pointing outward, like soldiers at attention. My voice came out a whisper. Who's here? No answer. Then one boot shifted, toes bending. The rest remained still. I took a step back. The beam flicked, went dark. When it came back, the boots were gone. I ran for the car, sliding across the puddles, radioing dispatch, screaming over static. I reached my door, slung myself inside, locked the frame. The engine started, hijacked tick and roar, and the rain slapped the windshield. I sat, racking for breath, eyes flicking between mirrors and rain-smeared glass. And then I saw it in the passenger seat. A single black boot, heel pressed against the fabric. No laces, no foot, just the shell of a boot. I tried to keep calm. I reached out, heart hammering, unbuckled the seatbelt. I yanked the boot free. In the heel was scratched 4911 in white. My blood ran cold. I opened the door, dropped the boot in the rain. It landed upright, laces loose, resting as though someone had set it down gently. I slammed the door, locked it, and drove off as fast as I dared, tires hydroplaning. Through my rear view, the bay receded, floodlights glowing, as though bidding me good night. I filed another false alarm report this morning, as always. I erased the word gurney, the boots, the footprints, the boot in my seat. I told them I saw nothing except broken glass and shattered trays. They thanked me. They said, get some rest. I told them I would. But the file I found, 4911, it's torn into pieces now, shredded and buried under paperwork. I can't bear to burn it. Fire seems too permanent. I keep a scrap by my nightstand. Each night I wake to find it moved, crumpled, as though someone unseen is reading it, waiting for me to remember. Tomorrow I'll go back once more. Same time, under the same fog. I'll take an extra radio, but I know it won't help. The walls will whisper again, the gurneys will roll out, and the boots will line up on the floor. I'll see those jars in the closet, and I'll feel the breath of that child's laugh on my neck. And when I climb into my cruiser, I'll find that boot again, waiting for me. Because at St. Mark's Clinic, nothing ever stays in the report. Whoever, or whatever, made that boot for me is still here. I just don't know why.